How's it going, guys? So, welcome to the second episode of A Conversation with Mental Illness. On this episode, I talked to my friend Megan. We talked for quite a while about a lot of different things, which is exactly what I was hoping for. It's close to 3 hours long. I know that sounds like a long time. However, as of rewatching it, and I hope you'll feel the same way, we talk about a lot of topics through the lens of and in the vein of mental health and mental illness, and the amount of topics that we talk about and how we go from one topic to the next. I also like to look at it as like a microcosm of what two people with ADD having a conversation is like. I really enjoyed it. Looking forward to you guys give me some feedback and what you guys think. Posting it here on YouTube. I'm posting it on Instagram. I'm going to be tagging Megan. She has a podcast, True Crime Time, which she'll talk about a little bit in the beginning of the episode. Show her podcast some love. Listen to it. It's on Spotify. It's on Anchor. I believe it's on iTunes and all those places. And again, if you're watching this on Instagram or YouTube, yeah, check out her stuff. And I hope you guys enjoy this episode. And also, as I said in the last episode, I'll say it on this episode quite a few times. I'm sure I'll say it on the next episode, which I already have recorded. Be on the lookout for that next week. Yeah, I'm looking for people like you to have conversations with about mental illness. It doesn't have to be 3 hours, half hour, 45 minutes, an hour, 2 hours, 5 hours. There is no limit. It's just a conversation talking about, your experience, and what all that entails. And the goal I have is so that people watching who maybe don't have mental illness of any kind or know that they do, maybe they'll think they'll figure out that they do, or it'll be like an epiphany, or there's someone they love or know who does, and they could better communicate with that person, or even though it's 2020, people are still, I don't know, I just feel like people are still unaware of like what resources to look for, how to know how to where to go, what to do with their mental illness, with the inside of their brain, and maybe watching something like this, one of my videos, they can go like, oh, these are my people, or I get that. That's me. Wow. Maybe I should. And they can it'll help them along the way. But I hope you guys enjoy this video. Thank you for watching. Please, of course, if you watch this on YouTube, like, subscribe, leave me some comments if you wanted to share something. If not, you can direct message me on Instagram at _an_anxious_man_, or you can email me at theluniverse@gmail.com. Thanks. Bye. All right, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and everyone in between, germs and what is it, ladies and germs? I don't know why I let people say
I
that.
think I think that's right.
Yeah, let's start the episode like the 1950s television. And here's our racial epithet. No.
Oh no.
Uh, um, so another episode of A Conversation with. I did one last week, 2 weeks ago with my friend Kara, and I actually have another friend who was interested, liked the video, wanted to join me, and I'm trying to get other people to do this. And basically, we're going to talk for whatever, however long, about our experience with mental health and how it is. I don't know what the right word is. Affected by or is affected by. I just said the same thing. Just how it interacts with like now social media, your life, your work, your job, whatever. So my friend Megan, I'd like to let you introduce yourself, say who you are. You're a person. What do you do besides be here right now on this camera? What's your life?
Honest, I'm barely a person. Like,
Okay,
like
good.
uh, you know that. Don't pretend. My name is Megan. I have a podcast in addition to working a regular full-time job that nobody cares about, so I'm not going to talk about that. But yeah, I have a true crime podcast that's called True Crime Time, and it also kind of ties into mental health, I guess, because so many people I found who are interested in true crime have some kind of mental health thing going on. It's interesting, I guess. Have you noticed that as well? No.
All right. Well, have I noticed that? I'm not so much into true crime, but I am. So you have a podcast. It's called True Crime Time. You have a pretty decent following of people who are into murder, I guess, is what it's about, right? And
Not
or
that people
about figuring out who did it,
there you go.
who done it, who done the murders.
Who
And
done
I
it?
don't like I do like your podcast. I've listened to every episode.
Yeah.
Um, I've been on one episode and I enjoyed it. But like,
The video too.
oh, that's right, we did the video too. I forgot. Yeah, so like, was that this year? Was that last year?
At this point, I don't remember, honestly. I'm not sure.
Me neither. I don't. Time is irrelevant at this point. But so I have not noticed it because my likes of likes, my interest in true crime is it's almost like a surprise to me. Like I don't really listen to like a bunch of true crime podcasts or anything like that. However, certain things will, I guess we're drawn to because like the most recent one, I guess like show I've been watching Hannibal. I talked to you about it. And your
Ooh,
background is
I
Hannibal
didn't do
Lecter's
that
back.
on purpose. My background of
Uh,
Hannibal. Yeah.
the show is amazing. It's I guess it's more accurately depicted from the books. And it is a psychological thing where there's mental health in the show. He's a Hannibal's a therapist, and
Right.
Will Graham is his patient, and then it just goes on. And then at one point he's opening up Will Graham's head to eat his brain, so it's a lot. It's dramatic, but it's good. It's a good show. I don't know. Are people with mental health more drawn to like psychologically titillating things? Maybe is that what it is?
I've noticed just from the people who I interact with, and I can't speak for everyone, honestly. And if you hear noises, it's my cats, and there's nothing I can do about it, and I apologize. Um, Interacting with people, I've noticed that a lot of people have like depression or anxiety or something else, going on. And for me personally, um, I'm so interested in the psychological factor. Like, I'm not interested in just like murder. I just want to know what makes people do things they do, I guess. And I think it's interesting though that you said that. You're like, well, I'm not really interested, but I am, because you know so much more. Like talking to you, you just come out with like weird facts that if someone was like, oh, I'm not really into true crime, like I wouldn't expect you to know. Do you know what I mean?
I do. Well, I think that I absorb a lot of things. So on the last episode with my friend Kara, the reason why we had the episode was because I was looking for audiobooks about procrastination because I am a procrastinator. I'm like the world heavyweight champion of
What?
procrastination. And turns out the book that I borrowed from the library via the Libby app was a book about ADD. And the book is about a woman, doing research to see if her son has ADD and finds out, whoops, she has ADD. So I'm like, haha, that's the worst way to find out. And then 45 minutes later, I was like, oh, I have ADD. This is what happened. So I realized now in the past month, I guess, it's not like it was a mind blowing, like you found out you have like terminal something. It's more along the lines of like, oh, now things make a little more sense. Why am I such a like? So you complimented me like, oh, I know things. Well, yeah, I absorb a lot of information. Is it can I use it when it needs to be used? 50% of the time, yeah, I can dazzle myself with like, hey. The other 50% of the time, it comes to me at like 3:45 in the morning, like I know you want to go to sleep right now, but did you know that? And it's like, oh fuck, and it's like that. But
Yeah.
yeah, I think you're right in the sense that even though I say I don't like true crime, turns out most documentaries I probably watch are in the vein of true crime. Most
Mhm.
movies I like are in that vein as well. Um, so why would I say I don't like it? I don't seek it out. I think maybe it seeks me out. Is that too dramatic? That's dramatic.
No, it's fine. It's totally fine. But I want to ask you, and I know you talked about, ADD a lot last time. Um, when you read that and you kind of realized that that was like, oh man, I have ADD or ADHD or whatever, did you kind of think back for your life and be like, oh, that's why in school this happened? Or like, do you not think you had it or were experiencing it that far back? Or like, what was kind of your thing?
Hmm. I did do that for a little bit. It kind of took me out of the book, because it's an audiobook. I have to listen. So
Right.
once I had that realization of like, oh crap, because like I guess a lot of people, I don't I don't try to, prejudge, especially mental health or illness of any kind. I have anxiety. I touches of depression here or there. My Most of my life it's been anxiety. It's why I have the podcast and the vlog and talk about it for years now. But recently, my friend, who I will be making a video with this week, she said something to me that really like resonated. Which said, anxiety and depression are really the symptoms of other things. It's like they're not specifically the thing; they are the byproduct of things, and that kind of clicked, and then the ADD thing kind of clicked because I always thought it was just ADD was I can't pay attention, or ADHD was I'm just hyper, and it turns out ADD is it's both. You either are overstimulated and literally cannot pay attention to one thing, or you can only pay attention to one thing,
Right.
and you become so enamored and absorbed with it. So that clicked. Like I will do that. I find myself even in my late 30s, I get so overstimulated that I can't do anything of use. I can easily do nothing, and by nothing, watch 47 episodes of something, or 50 hours of something, or listening to music, something that will stimulate my brain, but I don't have to like do any physical activity. So that's where ADD, I think, falls for me. Or I
Wow.
will, as you said, we were having a conversation earlier today about going down the rabbit hole, or that was last night. Yeah, I will
Is
go
that
down the rabbit hole. I will catch the rabbit and I'll stay. I'll like move in. Like I'm with you now, rabbit. I live here.
moving habit?
I'll do that. Now, what about you? I know you told me that you have ADD. You know for a fact.
Yeah. Well, Lou. It all started. Um, no, but they knew very early on. Like my mom knew I don't want to say there was something wrong with me, but there was something up with me because um, I was always very smart from elementary school. I'm talking maybe even before.
Hmm.
It's just that I could never focus. I could never get anything done. I was always procrastinating. I kind of had my head in the clouds. Like I even remember experiencing because ADD, I didn't really have the hyper version. I more had like the just like concentration or like fixation version, but I wasn't like a hyper kid. I was always kind of like low energy sloth, which has accompanied me to my 30s now. Um, but yeah, so they kind of started looking into that kind of early for me. And I remember actually experiencing anxiety related to ADD because in, I guess, elementary school, maybe like first or second grade, I just wouldn't do my homework because if something overwhelmed me, I would just avoid it. But then when they would come and ask for homework, I would start to freak out and get sweaty, stomach would hurt, and it's like I didn't know that was the word. Like I didn't know anxiety was that what that was. But that started from a very, very early age for me. But that was kind of the first thing that I um, experienced or was diagnosed with. And when in middle school, I went to see like a doctor about it. And I didn't really know I was going to the doctor. My mom was like, let's go talk to this man. And I was like, okay, whatever. They also put me on some kind of like mood stabilizing something um, because I was a depressive person. And I remember this is like weird. And this is kind of like
And this is
it all,
elementary school, right? This is like elementary school years.
yeah, like elementary school to middle school. So very early for me. But when I went to the doctor in middle school, something happened. Like I had a fight with someone at school or something. And I remember it was almost like a switch flipped and I felt super apathetic towards everything just all of a sudden. Um, so that was they kind of diagnosed me, but didn't really tell me what was going on. But I guess they diagnosed me with like depression or some kind of like mood disorder or something at that time. And it bothered me even at that age because I didn't want to take any pills. Like I didn't want there to be something wrong with my brain. And
Okay.
that was the immediate thing I thought of is there's something wrong with my brain, and that sucks. Like no one wants to have that, especially when you're young and no one's really like explaining it to you.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was kind of just like a lot of things at once, but I can't, I still can't focus on something if I don't care about it. Like I have to be some kind of interested in it
Hmm.
for me to have any kind of focus or concentration at all.
No,
So that,
that makes sense. I agree. I've also, and maybe you've had this experience throughout my probably my whole life, the fact that I also will not, I don't know what the right word is, opt in, participate if I don't really have any interest in. I was from a young age. I used to be told that I was like a quitter, or I used to be told I had a closed mind, like by family. Like you got such a closed mind. And at the time, I'd be like, and looking back, I'm like, I was fucking 8. Like I didn't have a closed mind. I was 8.
right.
I just discovered my own like shoes. Like you know what I mean? Like
Oh
I
my God.
wasn't closed off.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I,
Like so, I agree. I can't do something which actually sucks because in capitalism, most of how you make it is by doing a lot of shit that you just don't give a fuck about or have no connection with. So work for me is miserable, but I like my job. There's a zen quality to my job. I get to be alone. I can listen to music while I work.
yeah, that's
I'm
great.
outside, which this part of the year is not great, but there's if I can distract a part of my brain, the part of my brain that wants to bitch, the
Right.
other part of my brain that can actually like do manual labor, and the other part of my brain that enjoys completing tasks, they all kind of like will come together. It's like a real zen thing. But
Yeah.
if one of the sides of the triangle isn't there, it doesn't work. But when you're when you're a grown adult human, which on paper I am, but like we both know, like I'm not really an
I
adult.
know.
I'm an adult. Like if I break the law, I'm going to man jail. But like I'm like
Yeah.
like, can you please put me in juvenile hall? I want to play board games for I can't do that.
You can do that
Uh,
in a safe word.
yeah, house arrest sounds great to me. Like that's where my brain is right now. It's like arrest me, but like I don't have to go to work anymore or do things anymore. But I'm stuck at home, like not pandemic, but like
Right.
like post pandemic. But yeah. So if I can't like have the perfect combination of like variables, I don't do it. And people like my dad, who is a guy who like will just now he's like going through retirement, but his whole life it's like get up at 4 o'clock in the morning, eat shit for 12 to 16 hours a day, and be happy about it. Be happy what you have from that thing.
Right.
And like I can't, but then I fight with myself. Like if I had to, like if I had got a girl pregnant and got married and when I was 20, would I just be like grinding, just gritting my teeth through it? Maybe.
Yeah.
But I also feel like I didn't do any of those things because even then, when I wasn't thinking about marriage or children or family, subconsciously I knew, I guess, on like a physical, chemical, cellular level, like, don't do that because that is like work, and you don't like work. So,
Yeah. I
uh,
mean, it's hard. Like, I don't know, because my mom too has always been, and a lot of it's been out of, sorry, I have a notification, just getting rid of that. She's always been very like get up and go. And I think a lot of that had to do with, and I'm not going to tell her story because it's not my place to do that, but it was kind of out of necessity or out of like survival to just keep doing, sorry, my cat, keep doing things, keep moving. And I still think like to this day, she works too hard. I feel like she knows she does, but like she'll work all day long. At one point, she had 3 jobs at once when I was little, when her and my dad separated and got divorced. But like will still come home from work and do projects like yard stuff or house stuff or like hobby stuff, but it's work because she likes to quilt and like sew and stuff like that. But she'll do it really late And then she's always tired. And it's like, I feel like it's kind of like a generational thing, but also um, just the thing people kind of do to get through things sometimes. And then
Yeah.
maybe you can get used to it. I've always tried to explain to her, because she has done that when she's sick, even when it's really important for you to like kind of chill out and take care of yourself.
Hmm.
And sorry, everything's fine. Sorry, my cat again. Um, she kind of always said that with me, and I've tried to explain to her, and she gets it now because it's different and it's hard to deal with. I don't want to say deal with because it's your kids, but it's hard to understand, I guess, um, when your kid is like special needs or um, they have some kind of mental disorder or something going on that like, have you heard of the spoon theory?
Spoon theory. No, what's that?
No. So basically for someone who has um, like an invisible illness, which is including but not limited to any kind of mental health disorder like depression, like anxiety, like bipolar, like um, fibromyalgia, which I know we're branching into non mental illnesses, but it's like the sheer act of existing takes more energy than a person who's like good. You know what I mean? Who's like normal. Um, so we start the day with like a lower number of spoons, for example. So there's like a diagram somewhere that will probably explain it better than I can. But like if the average person starts the day with, I don't know, like 50 spoons, but someone who suffers from some kind of invisible illness starts the day with like 25 or 30. And each activity you do costs more spoons
Ah.
than someone else, a normal, which I'm not stigmatizing normal people, obviously, but that's I think that's an important lesson. It's a great way to illustrate it because you're showing people who might not understand, like you're already starting out kind of at a disadvantage. And it's not that you should be treated normally or not normally or not like everyone else, but it's just that everyone's different and has different needs and like requirements and different energy levels and things like that. So
Hmm.
that's a little fun fact for
No,
you about
that makes total sense. I'm gonna obviously like when I'm editing this and putting it together, I'll look that up, and if there's an actual diagram of some kind, I'll plop it up on the screen here.
that.
No, it makes perfect sense. I've never heard the term spoon theory, but I do, I guess, in my own, because for me, with like just to talk about just anxiety. So I people who watch my videos know starting in like 2017, I started making like daily videos, and I know you've seen them, and I did it for like 6 months straight because I was having like bad, terrible anxiety. I still have it. Anxiety never goes away. Every human being on earth has it. It's just my reaction to it is just better. I mean, this year alone, I
Right.
guess every 14 minutes I want to have a panic attack, but I haven't because of it's like constantly. So the spoon theory makes sense because for me it's like you're constantly using energy to like talk yourself or breathe
Exactly.
yourself out of you know panic or stress, or and it does take a lot more energy. And I never ever in my life was diagnosed. When I was a kid, I'm certain I had anxiety. I guess back in the early 90s, I was considered like a shy kid or a sensitive
You?
kid,
I
but
can't see them.
I was a shy baby. I was a Muppet baby, but also I was always a big kid. I was always the tallest kid in the class. I was always the biggest kid in the class in my family. So like, it's not that I didn't get any sympathy. I don't want to make it seem like I have a very privileged, cushy life. I didn't have to work from 9 years old or have to shovel coal, or I mean, I worked and I did things, but
Well, you also weren't born in like the 1900s,
yeah,
so.
it wasn't Dickensian. I wasn't like uh, but my parents, my dad specifically, grew up very poor, and I didn't. I mean, I was poor. Don't get me wrong, I was poor, but I was not. It's not that I wasn't aware of it. It didn't affect me. I mean, I had everything I needed, and but like I said, when you were in elementary school, so people notice things, your mom, teachers,
Yeah.
whoever, and they're like, well, like, wait, what is this? It's something. I never. the public school in Queens where I grew up, you kind of just like went through as long as you could function and do some 80, I guess 65% of the work, you kept moving forward. And my parents were young and they are not educated on any of that stuff. So I was articulate. I was also really, really, really smart as a little kid. Like, I don't want to say the word genius, but like I was really like, I was always in like the office. They're like, he's too smart to do this, but he's
Yeah.
lazy. And it was like that kind of conversation all the time.
Exactly.
And my dad never let me skip grades or anything like that when they wanted me to. Thankfully, because I would have, been in like, with older kids. But the point is, I was never diagnosed. Even when I started therapy 4.5 years ago, I like walked into her office like, "Hi, I have anxiety. What can you help me?"
Right.
There's no like,
And you just went to a therapist. You didn't go to like a psychologist. Is that the one with the meds? I always get them mixed up.
no, yeah, psychiatrist
Psychiatrist.
is a doctor. They can prescribe meds. A therapist or a psychologist, it's basically the same thing, but they can't prescribe. They're not an MD. Um, that to me is pretty much the only difference that I can see. It's just talking and they're listening.
That's right.
But when
Um,
I went there 4.5 years ago, I mean, I had like 30 years of backed up shit that I need to like get out.
to sort through. Yeah, it's a lot.
And I didn't know where to begin. And I wanted to start by like going all the way back to the beginning, like trying to figure out when it started, why it started, how to stop it, etc. And after a few months, she was like, "We can't do this. You're never going to figure out the exact moment when you start having anxiety. There's not
Right.
ever going to be like one single reason why you have it." And even, she's helped me a lot. I haven't spoken to her in a couple of weeks, but other people, like talking to people like you, my other friend who I'm going to do the video with, the girl Kara I did the video with, I decided just recently to do videos with other people because I always have these conversations with people anyway. I make
Right.
the videos myself normally. I talk about it. If who watches it, whoever watches it, watches it. Whoever doesn't, doesn't. Some people get it. The whole point is to relate. The reason I wanted to make these videos is because I had these conversations anyway with most people I know. And it turns out that the people I'm having the conversation with are people who, the more engaged conversations are people who are also have, the word I've heard recently was, people who are like, the term is neurodivergent. You're
Yeah.
not, it's not that you're not normal, but you definitely have some, like you said, an invisible something. It's not a physical disease per se. I mean, I'm a hypochondriac, so it can be very physical. I've gone to
Right.
the hospital a couple of years ago. I mean, that was like 3 years ago, but with a panic attack, I thought I was dying, and I never did that again. But I know people do it all the time. Once a month, they're going to the hospital or something like that. And
That's
but
that's like the one thing I don't have.
what's that?
I said that's like the one thing I don't have is like hypochondria.
Yeah, it's not fun because,
No.
but we do talk often, and I know that you are, anxiety is overthinking, like taking a little thing and then going like, how bad can I make this, and just making it as worse.
Huge thing, yeah. Well, so when I went to, just to give a little bit of a background on my qualification.
Yeah,
So when I was an adult, um, whenever that happens, because I
yeah,
still don't feel like an adult, um, I think I was in my late 20s. It was right after, obviously you remember when Robin Williams died?
yeah.
That was so sad, right? So I've been struggling for a while with depression really hard. And for me, it's not usually depression, anxiety together. It's like one or the other. Um, for like a long period of time, sometimes they switch on me, which is fun. Um, but it was then I was really struggling, and my sister kept telling me like, you need to go talk to someone. Like you don't live like this. And that was the thing that got me to actually finally go to a psychiatrist. That's the meds one.
Hmm.
But just to kind of talk about and see what he thought I had. And I thought for sure it was just like anxiety and depression. And that's what he would say. Um, and he was great, but I went in there and he was like, you have three things. And I was like, what? Because whatever. So it was anxiety and depression, but he told me I have two different kinds of anxiety disorders. And one of them, and I think I mentioned this to you before, because I was saying, I think maybe not to like diagnose you, but I think maybe you have the um, like generalized anxiety disorder, which is very common, but
Mhm.
it's when you worry all the time and it's not like one thing that sets you off. There's not one trigger thing. It's like so many things can make you worry at any given time.
Mhm.
Um, Literally anything. Like someone doesn't answer the phone, which I mentioned to you yesterday was making me nervous,
Yeah.
or um, intrusive thoughts, or my car is going to break down, like anything. It's constant little anxiety all the time. But then he also told me I had panic disorder. And I was like, well, that sounds horrible, but okay. And I read about it and it made more sense because, like you were saying before, my panic attacks were just increasing and increasing and getting worse and bigger because I didn't really have any tools to manage them because I had just been doing it on my own. Um, but then I started going to actual therapy, not with him because he was way too expensive. Um,
America.
Yeah, no, he was really good though. He was very smart and he was like on it. And he was very engaged in our conversations. Um, but so I started seeing this lady, and at first I wasn't sure that I liked her style. But she would like tell me a lot of her own like stories. And that's like when you have so much, like you were saying, you went and you had so much to unload, right?
Yeah.
And like you want to tell your story, and they start telling you a story back, and you're like, hold up, this is my time to shine. Hold on. But I actually learned a lot from the stories she would tell me. So it worked out well, but it was just initially I was kind of like, oh, but she was great. Um, but it's a lot. It's a lot to like anxiety, like you're saying, is just it can be a real monster or like a real mountain if you don't have anything to help you deal with it. Because
Mhm.
people will say, it's so funny. I had this book called Hyperbole and a Half, which was a whole comic strip about depression, but it was so real. And I guess it relates to anxiety too, but like it's always like people are telling you to do yoga or like go ride your bike or just whatever. And it's like, do you understand that my brain is broken? And I don't mean that in like a,
No, it's right. It's the right. It's definitely not the nice term nowadays, but it's exactly, yeah. My chemicals are broken.
but like, yeah, let me go ride a goddamn bike and that will fix my serotonin in my brain. Like, thank you so much. I never thought of that. Or like, have you just tried not thinking about it? Like, oh my God, that's all I had to do this whole time. Thank you. Just stop doing it. Oh, like, it's just, I know people have good intentions, but like that shit is not helpful. It's not helpful, especially because everyone says it to you.
Yeah.
Anyone will say that to you, except for the people who really know what they're talking about.
Well, what
No.
I do, and I've been guilty of doing the same thing that in the past, and I guess it's like a knee-jerk reaction. Like I said, people have good intentions. So if you're freaking out and someone actually cares, because if they don't care, they're not gonna say shit. But if they care, they just don't want you. And I think it's a multitude of reasons, and some of them are cynical reasons. Like I think having a person panic or have anxiety, like visibly, they're not doing okay in the moment. I think loved ones and people who care about you they tell you those things you just rattled off. Don't think about it. Think about something else. Exercise, get outside. Those things do work. Riding a bike will help. I always tell people, I tell them I used to drive. I used to get in my car and drive because you physically cannot be operating a 3,000 pound machine and freaking out. Your brain won't allow it. You just can't do both. So those things do work, but being told it's I understand what you mean because I go through the same thing. If I wanted to do it, or if I felt in that moment it was going to do it, I'd be doing it. We wouldn't be having this conversation. You wouldn't be telling me to do something. Um,
Right.
but I also think the cynical part of my brain, and I'm in the least cynical I've ever been in my life in the past couple of years, is that people can't have a person not doing the status quo of like humanity. If you're freaking out, even though it might be about nothing, it's almost like it like scares the rest of the herd. You
I
can't
was
have
just
you freaking out because you're going to fuck up capitalism and dinner, and we need everything to just be. We need all our problems to be underneath, buried like we like it, and our problems, anxiety, depression, whatever, we do keep it to ourselves a lot. But then when it bubbles over, people are scared to see it because it's like raw, visceral humanity. Like,
yeah.
I'm scared of the unimaginable oblivion that you guys aren't really paying attention to, but I'm very aware of it. And they're like, please stop talking about it. We all know we're going to die, but don't bring it up. And it's like, but don't you want to know what it's like to not be? And people are like, no, it's Thanksgiving.
No.
And
Well, yeah.
so that, I think that's part of it too. Now, so pandemic. I know we've talked. So I know for a fact that you've had a lot of, we've all been stressed, anxiety, depression, etc.
Blindside. Yeah, yeah.
But panic. Have you had any like panic attacks this year that you want
Yeah,
to?
not for the reason that you would think. Um, so initially when the pandemic started, so I know other people, I just want to be clear, who had like anxiety. Um, and like you can share things with them. Like I can share things with you that I can't share with like a I don't want to say regular person because I feel like it's giving a negative connotation.
Regular schmegular people. I get it. No,
Yeah.
say
But
I guess say like you're just say like the average person. That's fine.
the average Josephine, I don't know. Um, but I feel like you're saying they're scared, and I feel like maybe they think you're just overreacting. And I've had people almost get like annoyed because they're like, well, why is this such a big deal to you? And it's like, because it just is. But instead of I feel like you do this too. Like if something's freaking me out or something's freaking you out, we don't just say like, just stop doing it. We'll be like, well, why? What is it about that thing? Right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
why are you thinking that? And that's more helpful, I feel like, because once you take it apart, it's usually not as scary.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so getting back to like pandemic. So initially I was like nervous just about my job situation. Like, were we going to be deemed like essential or non-essential or what's going to happen? But I was almost like, I almost felt vindicated at the beginning. I was like, I told y'all some shit was going to happen and now it has. And I'm prepared emotionally and you're not, just because I always am like the worst case scenario,
Yeah.
So when the worst case scenario happened, I was like, this feels right. This feels right. Yes.
Yeah.
But then, and I was hanging on like really well, but then things started to pile on top of that for me, like personal things. Like I found out that I had to move and I really liked the apartment that I was in and I really didn't want to move. So it was like that change. And I started to have panic attacks as a result of that. So it wasn't really pandemic related, but I think it was like a byproduct almost. Like maybe there was some underlying stress from that. And then when you pile other things on top of it,
Mm-hmm.
perhaps. So I've definitely had panic happenings, but just not exactly specific to the 2020 apocalypse, if that makes sense.
No, it makes sense. That's just that's your average run of the mill, overstimulated nervous system, and something is going to pop it. So,
Yeah.
and at that point, it could be anything. Like with the general anxiety and the panic, which I think I'm in both of those categories. Yeah, for me, I was never having a panic attack because of like, it wasn't that it was it was it with being a hypochondriac, I would take a specific thing, a sensation, a thought, and as I like to put it, or how I used to put it, I like to fix it until it's broken. So I will, just toil over it and play with it and break it
Yeah.
apart, and in my brain
Right.
until it's out of control. I've turned into, I'm turning molehills into mountains, and and that sort of thing. So I have intrusive thoughts like right now. So I have not had a panic attack the entire pandemic. I've come close a few times. So I haven't had one in a couple of years. I mean, I got myself to the point where I'll get close, but I won't, because I think at a certain point, if we're being completely honest with ourselves, when you have a panic attack, there is a moment, there is a fork in the road when you could do the familiar thing, which is guaranteed you're going to have a panic attack, or go the other way. And if you go the other way, you won't have a panic attack. And I feel like 99% of panic attacks you walk right into. Maybe not in the first couple of years, those things kind of came out of nowhere. But then I think on a chemical level, you get addicted to the familiar, because it becomes like that thing where you build yourself up, you build it up, you build it up, and then you almost want to make the thing happen that you've been building up to because it's familiar or because it will sort of like reaffirm what you've been doing for hours or the whole day. So you need it to happen. And I also
Well, so my therapist, who I don't get to see anymore because what happened?
because what? I couldn't hear you.
Oh no, I was just saying my therapist I don't get to see anymore just because insurance, because America,
Yeah.
they sometimes they change providers on you and you lose your doctors. But she told me before, I'm trying to remember exactly how she said it, but she mentioned to me about how I lived in a state of hypervigilance, which is that's pretty much what you're talking about, right?
Yep,
Where
absolutely.
you're just always like you're trying to just plan always for the worst thing to happen. And my argument for that, because I did argue, because I'm just like that, is like I've literally seen the worst things that can happen. And so I felt justified living like that because I've lived through the worst case scenario several times.
Mm-hmm.
So she was like, that's not like a good way to live though. If you're hyper vigilant, like you're stressing out your body. Um, and I did, like, I paid the price for it. I got like ulcers. My gallbladder died, like crazy things. Um, but like, it depends. Everyone's different, but like, I know some people, when they have like a panic attack or they're really hyper vigilant, they'll have like heart palpitations or stress headaches, or they feel like they're going to throw up, or just their stomach hurts, or they're shaky. Like, it's not kind of like a one size fits all, but
Yeah.
it's just not good for you to live in a state like that. And that's something that I still have to, I'm much better about it. Um, but there are some times where it just kind of takes me away, like you're saying. And like, I don't even know in certain scenarios because it's because of the tools I was given to kind of work with anxiety and panic disorder. I'm much better at handling it. So when I actually get to a panic attack, it's something big, right? Or something maybe I didn't have control over. So I couldn't choose to stop it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but by the time it takes me away, it's bad. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's a tsunami. And how do you stop a tsunami? Right?
No, I agree. And what you said, what you're saying now is how I like to put it. Same thing. Basically the tsunami. To almost reverse engineer it, the way I think about it is, I think being so, because that's what it is. You're just so vigilant about it, and the thing that plays on your brain is the most of the things are the most improbable, but they are not impossible. So that's what your brain tricks you, where they'll say like, "This isn't gonna happen. That's not gonna happen." Like that's how like relatives or friends will be like, "Dude, you're not gonna die right now. The thing is, whatever the
Right.
thing is you're talking about, it's not gonna happen, but it could." There's always that part of your brain's like, "But it could. It
Right. But
totally could. It's not impossible."
my
So
argument
problem.
for that, people would tell me that is, and just to give a little background so that makes more sense. When I was little, so I'm talking about way in the formative years, right? Terrible things happened, right? So I didn't even have the opportunity to have a irrational thought and someone be like, that's not going to happen. Like a bad thing happened and then followed all the way through, right? So I didn't get to learn the normal way or the average way, whatever we're saying. So for example, when I was 15 going on 16, my dad died and I knew, and I don't know, like I don't want to say it was like a psychic thing, but like I knew he was not coming out of the hospital. And everyone kept telling me he was, and I was like, no, he's not. No, he's not. No, he's not. And at that point, you just stop telling them because you don't want to take any hope away because that's what they need to
Yeah.
get through it. You know what I mean? And I'm just a little shit. Like, no one cares what I say anyway. Um, but like my grandma was really like, he's gonna get better. And I was like, okay. Um, but he didn't, and he died. And it's messed up. It's always hard to lose someone.
Yeah.
You're gonna lose your parents at some point. Sorry, that's just this.
No, I talk about it all the time. Believe me, everyone hates me that I talk about it all the time. But yes.
But it's true. You're going to lose them at some point. But when you lose them at 15 or in your teens or younger than that, whatever, like your brain is forming and your habits are forming and everything about like how your life is going to be, like the person you're developing into, like that's when it's happening.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so when things like that happened, and then my cousin died shortly after, and then my grandma died shortly after that, but all in kind of like traumatic ways. Like none of them were like super, I don't want to say supernatural like ghostly. I mean like supernatural. Um, my dad was, but he spent his whole life kind of just abusing his body. But he was only 46 years old, you know. So that's kind of that was like my psychological foundation for anxiety. So when people are like, that's irrational, that's not going to happen, I'm like, you don't know what I've seen.
Yeah, yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's like you can't tell me the bad thing's not going to happen because the bad thing already happened and it kept happening, and it's probably going to happen. Maybe it's going to happen tomorrow again. I don't know, because it was so like it kept coming and coming and coming, and I felt like I never really got a chance to get ahead of it or on top of it. And how can you when you deal with like a lot of death when you're young, you know?
Yeah, no, you can't hold back the inevitability of happenstance life. It's just never, it doesn't stop until it stops for the last, the first and last time, and that's it. You're done. So
Right. A lot of like my personal anxiety, even though I had it since I was little, kind of stems from those things happening. And I'm very protective now still about the people I care about, because that's the worst case scenario and I've already lived it
mm,
over and over. Do you know what I mean? So it's like my therapist used to say, she was like, when it comes to like depressive disorders or anxiety disorders, um, some people are born and some are made, like just like serial killers, or like nature versus nurture. Um, there's two other words she used, I can't remember at the moment, but she was like, in your case, it's both. And I was like, yay, thank you. So no matter what, I kind of I got it all. But
so all
yeah,
right. Now what I'm thinking, so for me, what that sounds like, and correct me if I'm wrong, that's trauma. That's what that is. Like you experienced trauma, and it manifested in, anxiety, depression, that kind of thing.
right.
For
So
me,
basically, I was predisposed to have these things since I was very little.
yeah,
I was kind of like an anxious little kid. Um, and then I experienced trauma,
yeah.
which heightened all of those things very much. um, so I would say that's accurate.
All right, yeah. So for me, I've wrestled with that thought of, because that to me, even though you lost your dad, then a cousin, then your grandma, and they were not, I guess, technically like natural, like you said, like natural ways.
Like we
That's just
were,
what happens. You lose people, right? But I always think that I always like tried to like dig up, like growing up, there were definitely things that trauma taught. Not, I don't. For my specific case, I don't want to say I was traumatized, but I guess I was. Like there was just things that happened in families. Like my parents are still together. It wasn't like an abusive or relationship, and there wasn't any like a lot of the things that a lot of people unfortunately have to experience. But I think from the perspective of a 4-year-old, 5-year-old, 6-year-old, 8-year-old, whatever, things that are pretty much to adults kind of like normal may be seem traumatic. So in my experience, my parents fighting very young, like I remember most of my memories are of the shitty stuff, and
Right.
the good stuff are few and far between. I remember some, but I could definitely tell you exactly like how I felt and what happened when like screaming is going on and fighting,
Yeah.
that kind of stuff.
Those are
And
trigger things for sure.
it carries over like to this day. Like certain things will make me feel like I'm a little kid, and it's embarrassing, whatever, but it happens. And for me, with anxiety, though, it's not. I don't believe, and I could be wrong because I'm still, catching up
Right.
at 37. Most of my anxiety is situational in the sense of like it's overthinking, it's general anxiety, it is based on it's panic. But for me, with the panic, it's I think the formula that what I've come up with is that I go, and I think a lot of people do the same thing. I always say mental, anxiety, depression. 99% of it's the same for everyone, but it's that 1% that's like your own flavor, and that's what makes it specific to you. So
Everyone
for
has their own
me,
flavor. Yeah, I believe that.
you don't believe that?
No, I said I believe that.
Oh
Definitely.
yeah. So and also so with me, I think with panic, what we do is we take that thing that's not impossible, but probability it's never going to happen, and that's the thing we go for. We think I'm going to die, I have cancer, this is going to happen, the world's going to end, whatever it is, because on a subconscious level, we know that is not what's happening. It's not going to happen, at least right now. But we freak out about it. We have our panic attack, whatever, however it manifests, and then when you don't die, get cancer, or hours or days later, you feel better. I
Mhm.
think you just kind of move on. But I think in your brain at some level, because I say it all the time, like that's how I guess it's not like a visual or verbal thing. I think the brain sees it as like, well, thank God I freaked out about the world ending because my vigilance and freaking out like stopped it from happening. So now you've created a pattern so that every time you get yourself the chemicals up, you go through the same process, you panic, you freak out for minutes, hours, or days, and then the thing doesn't happen. Like 99.9% of the time, it's never going to happen. And
Right.
then you go, whew, good thing I did all that stressing and freaking. I stopped it from happening. And I think that's part of the problem for me, specifically for me. That's what I think happens in my brain. I do that.
And I'm sure that's very common. Mine's like the opposite is where I will, or I have, I'm better about it now, but I would like beat myself up so bad for being like, you crazy bitch. Why would you freak out about when your package was getting delivered? Just something so stupid. Like I used to just get really upset. Like, why can't you just be regular? Like, just stop it. Like I would get very mad. So mine was like the different, but I feel like those are probably the two most common responses, honestly, like between yours and mine. Either like you're like, well, thank God I did that, even though it didn't happen. Like I was prepared and now it didn't happen. Or beating yourself up and not being nice to yourself or being kind to yourself and calling yourself names or whatever, which I'm much better about now. But for a long period of time, I would just get so upset. Like, why can't I just have like a rational thought pattern? Like, why?
I used to say, and I don't. Again, you don't want to. These days, you don't want to offend anyone. Not like a million people are going to be watching these videos, but like you don't want to have any one person like, hey, by the way, I'm that thing that you made fun of. But I used to tell myself, and I used to say it out loud, I wish I was dumber. I used to say it all the time. I wish I was just dumber. I wish I was just a simple,
I get
like,
that.
I know these people. I work with these people. When I was younger, I was a cynical asshole. I made fun of everybody. I was this miserable fuck. But older, wiser, I look at like someone who may at another time in history have been called a simpleton and envy them a little bit
Yeah.
because they just are dutiful, get up, do my thing. They have
Right.
families. They're not bad. It's not bad or good or better or worse. I know saying that and maybe the phrasing of how we talk about it makes it like you're belittling the person. I'm not. I don't do that. I don't think I'm better than anybody, or
No, I get what you're saying.
but like a simpler person, a person who just takes things at face value. Something not a deep thinker, but they're not in their head. It's a more balanced human being. And I
Well,
used to want to do that. Now I think I'm happy with what I am and how I am. Um, I don't really want to change so much. I definitely want to hone or sharpen what I have. That's pretty much how I look at it now. And
I
I'm not unhappy, but like I will still overthink. I'm always in my head. I'm constantly 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, in my brain, toiling and experimenting and just going over. I'm always talking to myself. I wake up in the morning, I start talking to myself out loud, usually because it's 5 in the morning and no one's awake, and I'll start have a full conversation from my bed to the bathroom to my van to the shop while
so
music is playing. Like I'll just like do
so
that.
you so you'll like do you ask yourself a question and like answer it? Like what is
Yeah,
the conversation?
yeah.
Really?
So like all right. So a typical conversation I'll have with myself will go along the lines of like this. I will wake up and it depends. It's not like I'm just having a conversation as if another person's in the room. I will have a thought. When you wake up in the morning, sometimes like either a little bit of your dream is still there, or you have a thought. Like sometimes I'll wake up and like a word is on my brain, or just a memory, or whatever it is.
Okay.
And so I'll wake up and I'll be let's say I'm in a good mood. I wake up because I do wake up in a good mood often. And I wake up and I start thinking about like what space travel. Let's just say space travel.
Okay.
So in my head, I'm thinking like, oh, wouldn't it be great if like Elon Musk like put a program together for looking for dum-dums who would volunteer to like go out and like be the first person to control the ship. They need a person in the ship to test light speed, but you can never come back. You're gonna send you out there, and the odds of you turning around and coming back are like slim to none. I'm like,
Same whole scenario.
I would do that. I would do that. And then it's me talking to myself about like the theory of light speed and how it would work. And then in my doing this, like I'm talking to myself, like I'm taking information that I know and
Hmm.
regurgitating in a conversation fashion. And in it, just naturally, I will be like tossed what I think other people, friends, family, whoever, would ask me, and I answer those questions. And
You're like Robert Durst.
and but I'm not a sicko. I'm not going to hurt anybody. I'm very harmless, I think, but I definitely
You can't say that about yourself though, because it doesn't count.
what's that?
You can't say like I'm harmless, because that just immediately red flags. Like,
Yeah, it's like I
I
have been watching Hannibal for 2 weeks, so I
yeah,
wouldn't.
like you can't say that. But like when Charlie Manson was like, I'm not crazy. Like you can't.
That's exactly what those guys say. Yeah. I
Right.
hope this isn't too noisy. I'm just re-icing my cup, and I'm gonna refill some lovely Johnny Walker Black.
I've already done that a few times with my booze.
What is that? Oh, that's the spiced eggnog?
It's Pennsylvania Dutch eggnog with
Ooh,
rum, brandy, and whiskey.
wow. Rum, brandy, and whiskey.
That's what it says.
Is it giving you heartburn, or is it good?
No, it's good
All right.
for the small price of $11.
It's high. That's high class right there.
I'm selling it, drinking it out of my mug too, like a real classy broad.
I prefer drinking most things out of ceramic mugs.
Really? Hmm.
Yeah, like if I have eggnog, it
Yeah.
tastes enormously better in a coffee cup than it does in a glass or a plastic cup. It just tastes better.
Yeah, I'll be honest, like I just didn't want to use my nice glasses because it's only me. So, well, and all of the fine people observing us.
Yeah, that's right. There are people at a certain point. People are going to watch this video, and I like to drink. I've developed a healthy Scotch habit over the past few months. When I was in my travels, a cousin of mine, I was in Idaho. I'm wearing the shirt. We were in McCall, Idaho, and he bought me a bottle of Scotch, and I was like, "This is very nice of you, but I don't drink Scotch." He's like, "Just try it." And
Yeah,
then
you
7 hours later, I was like, "I love Scotch. Scotch,
isn't
Scotch, Scotch."
I was gonna say that's from Anchorman.
Yeah, yeah. I became that person. I was.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah. Um, so for me, go. I definitely use the non-PC terms all the time, like I'm crazy or whatever, blah. But um, you've taken. So you said you took medication. Are you taking medication now again, or no?
I have like, and it's old at this point, but I have like a couple reserve like break glass in case of emergency, like Xanax. um, that I've always been really careful about using. They've prescribed me Klonopin in the past too, which is like it's more like a tranquilizer
Hmm.
kind of. But addiction runs in my family, so I've always been very hesitant. Like that's why I didn't even ever want medication to begin with, because I was like, I don't ever want to be like like those who came before me, like my dad and others in my family, but especially like that. So I'm always very cognizant of like what I take. I never take more than I'm supposed to. And these like I probably have like 5 left, and it's been like a year or two. And it's only if I'm like real out of control and I can't reel in my own anxiety.
Hmm.
But otherwise, I feel like because of I did 2 solid years of therapy with a therapist I mentioned earlier who I really liked. And I really feel like I'm better equipped to handle anxiety. Maybe not like depression so much, because that kind of just, that one sneaks up on you, you
Yep.
know? Just like in Big Mouth with the cat. It's so
Yeah.
accurate. It's so accurate. Where she's like, let's just go to sleep. And you're like, okay. Um, it's just like that. um, she's like, that sounds like a problem for later, you. And you're like, okay, you go to sleep. Okay.
I do
Um,
love the depression cat.
yeah. Because at first I was like, I was kind of, I want to say judgy from the outset, but I was like ready to be very critical of how they portrayed depression on that show. And then when they did, I was like, no, that's right. That seems right. Um, but yeah, so no medication. But I've talked about this before because like people in my family have talked to me, like my mom and my sister, about making sure I'm ahead of it because, like I said, it does sneak up on you, you know.
Yeah.
Um, and I think they're a little concerned about now that I've been off it for so long. It's been several years. Like, would I be afraid to go back again? Like, would I be, you know, um, against it or whatever? And I'll be honest, like, I went for a physical like maybe a year ago, maybe a year and a half, and I was mentioning to the guy, the doctor, not just like a guy. I didn't go to like an alleyway doctor. Um, I was having kind of like heart palpitations, and that was new for me. But I thought it was anxiety related because I'd been under a lot of like stress. That's not one of the symptoms I'd ever had. And he was like, let's put you on an antidepressant. Let's put you on this kind. And he was just pushing one kind at me. And that made me very uncomfortable because I felt like he was just trying to get like a kickback from the company.
Yeah.
Like I didn't feel like he was doing it for me, if that makes sense.
No, it makes sense. Yeah.
So that made me uncomfortable. But also, I went back to work and my friend had come after and we were talking in the parking lot. And I was actually kind of upset that I was like, I felt like I was doing so well. And he's telling me that he thinks I need to be back on them. And it's kind of like in a way, I almost felt like a failure.
Uh,
But this is something that, what is that? There's like a quote that's like, progress or like, God, what's the line? Progress or recovery isn't a straight line, something like that. Have you heard that before?
yeah, that sounds familiar. Something like yeah. I mean, there's like 1,000 of those, but I do believe I know what you're talking about, but I don't.
Yeah. The general idea is that, like, even though just because I've done well in therapy or I have a better handle on it doesn't mean I'm cured. You have it forever. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
especially someone like me who I was born with these genes or these lack of genes garbage genes um, that, have just set my brain up to not fire properly when I'm supposed to. So it's kind of in a very small way I grapple with that like it's always like a burden I'm gonna have to carry through my whole life.
Mm-hmm.
Which when you think of it like that sounds real shitty, right? Like,
Yeah.
to carry this burden. Um, but it's not unmanageable at the same time. Like when you really think about it, and it's a lot of work to keep it going, like to keep yourself healthy, like mentally healthy. But what's the alternative, right? Like you have to. Like,
Yeah, it's but it goes back to what we said when we first started talking about the spoon theory. You know, it
it's exhausting.
society is not set up for people who are like us, who
Right.
need I need like at 37 years old, I can't call out of work because I had a bad dream and you know what I mean? Like,
Okay.
I don't think I don't want to make it sound like I see a ghost in my dream and I poop my pants and I can't go to work. For me, I
Cool.
feelings yeah, feelings and emotions are very visceral to the point where, and I was just talking about this with you yesterday and my friend yesterday. Again, this is why I'm doing these videos, because I'm having these conversations anyway. I'm trying to get you people to make videos with me so I can, the goal is have other people listen and watch and go, oh, because I do believe even in 2020, most people are silently going through stuff and either refusing to believe it's them or they have no idea. And
I
then
100% agree. And that's one of the reasons why going through my own, and I don't want to call it a recovery process, but it is to an extent. Um, and like sharing that and being more vocal about that with my Instagram and stuff, because if I grappled with it, but I've come to a place where sharing it, I think only helps people
yeah,
because maybe people will be inspired to talk about it themselves. And the more people talk about it, the more common it becomes and the less stigma there is around it because everyone's talking about their issues. So I think that's important um, to share. Or even if they don't want to share, they hear it and they feel a little less alone, maybe something like that.
exactly. I don't necessarily expect people to like open up in the comments like, oh, me, they could, I won't shame anyone at all. And I feel like, and if let's say I was getting hundreds of thousands of views, of course the comment section on YouTube or even on Instagram would probably be a cesspool a little bit. It's unavoidable on the internet, but
Avoidable.
for the most part, um, on YouTube, on Instagram, 99.99999% of the feedback or what I hear is good. It's always people saying like either they enjoyed it or they related or whatever. Like you said the other night, like, hey, this is like my people. Like I get it. Like I watch that and go like I can relate to these. I know who these people are because I'm those people.
When
And
your friend were talking, it was just so I was listening to it and I was like, this is so relatable. Like my story fits right in with yours and hers about like the experiences you've had. And it was just like, so like if you haven't experienced it, you might not get it, but maybe it'll give you more insight if you love somebody
yeah,
who's going through that, right? But if you've lived it and you get it and then you hear other people talking about it, it hits different.
it hits different, as the kids say. Yeah. And also, yeah, there's a lot of that. I've noticed more of that this year than probably any years. That Instagram, Facebook, they can easily just be cancer. They can just be. I got into a not an argument, but like I commented on something, which I rarely do. I rarely comment on anything on Instagram, other than like people I know and their thing they're doing, and then of
Right.
course someone's like starts attacking you, like, hey, you're a clown or you're a piece of shit. And it's like I never engage, but today I was like, all right, I'm gonna not give him what he wants, which is me to fight with him, and like, but I'm just gonna like basically take a knee and assume I won this little tit for tat, and just say the things I know he doesn't want me to say, and he blocked me or whatever. So, um,
Yeah.
but what I'm getting at is like, there's so many pages and hashtags, and there's plenty of awareness, but there is a
There's
lot of that thing of if you don't know what it's like, but you do know someone who is exactly like this, here's how you can speak to them or how you can interact with them when they're like, but whether it's bipolar, anxiety, depression, schizophrenia, whatever, it's all out there. The information at this point in time, all the information's out there. So I don't agree that people not knowing is just sheer ignorance because it's we're all, especially this year with the pandemic, we're all worried about, our circles got so small this year because we're all freaked out about what's going on. So no, in my free time, I'm not reading up on schizophrenia or other things. I could be, I absolutely could be, but I'm not doing that. However, I know the person that I am. If I interact with someone and they're just showing me signs of mental illness, I'm not like fuck this person. I will go like, well, if I love the person or I like the person or they're a close friend, I will like Google. I'll take the time to be like, what is going on and how do I navigate without hitting buttons and so, et cetera, because it is easy to do that now.
Dude,
You know,
sorry, I was just gonna say, even when I was in middle school, and there was internet then, but it was like not everyone had it still,
it was AOL, yeah.
It was just for like the rich people. I remember finding my mom had books about different things that she thought I had. You know what I mean? Because like we didn't have a lot of money when I was growing up, and she couldn't afford to take me to all the places. Like I always had what I needed, but it's not like she could cart me around to all these a million doctors, right? So she would read stuff, and then she would take me to one doctor and kind of talk about her concerns. But it's out there for you to read, whether you get a book or you look online or whatever. But I actually one of the things when I started going to therapy, just to kind of better understand, is I told her about my dad and my dad was bipolar. I think that's the first time I'm mentioning it on here for y'all. But I would talk to her about that because she specializes in mental illness, and I wanted to know more about it because I wanted to understand him better.
Mm-hmm.
I don't mean this in any way to, I don't know if it might sound condescending or anything, but like mental illness as a person who has some stuff going on, but also who comes from a family of, and also has an interest in true crime, mental illness or like any kind of psychological thing. It's just interesting to me. It's fascinating to me. So I just want to know, what goes on? How does it happen? Why, how is it different? How do those people act? And in the case of my dad, he wasn't here to talk to you about it anymore, but she helped me get some insight on how he might have processed things differently. And he was like a big man child his whole life till the end. He was always like a big kid. And I don't know if he was medicated. I think he had gone to see people. I think maybe he chose not to. Like he wasn't like a super stable individual. But you also can't force anyone to like get the help that they need, which is hard,
Exactly. Yeah.
That's the hard part about it. Like I called, I think I was like 12, and I, lived with my mom full time. I only saw him like every other weekend, which is like a pretty standard custody thing in New York State or whatever, for the time at least. And I called his landline, if anyone still knows what those are. And his voicemail picked up, and he sounded like emotional. And he was like, "Hi, it's Ben. Like I'm not gonna be around anymore, so like don't bother leaving a message." And I was like, "Well, that's not great." And
Yeah.
I'm little, you know what I mean? I'm 12, right? So I started getting panicky. I start calling all around to make sure he's fine, and he was fine. But just when you have bipolar, you have manic depression, and you swing from one extreme to the other, that happens sometimes. Like I know other people who have told me like their parents have it, or they know people who have it or whatever, and it's honestly not the most difficult, but it's probably one of the most difficult things to deal with because you don't know who you're going to get.
Yeah.
from day to day sometimes. Like, you don't know if they're going to be nasty or they're going to be emotional, they're going to be really happy, or they're going to blow all their money on you, or they're going to burn all their money in a can on the corner. Like, you don't know. And they don't either sometimes.
Yeah, no, I definitely get that. I used to think, I still at my age think some days I go like, well, what if I have Asperger's? What if I have bipolar disorder? What if I'm schizophrenic? But there are for a lot of things now like definite telltale signs, and I don't think I'm bipolar.
Yeah.
I don't think I'm bipolar. I don't think I have, schizophrenia, or it's just when I've got to the point of my anxiety will get so high, or depression, the combination of the two, you get like disassociative, effects where you're just like depersonalization. You're just so overstimulated. There are things in your brain is, if it was on a CAT scan or a PET scan, it would be lit up. So on the outside, you look like a regular guy. On the inside, it's like to the point where I used to describe when I was younger. When I used to go to bed at night, I couldn't sleep, and I had to start listening to music to go to sleep. And I still, up until within the last year or two, now I'll put music on my phone, but I won't put headphones on. I had to have headphones on. I
Yeah.
need to cancel out the rest of Earth, or I couldn't sleep. And I started doing it from like, I think I was like 10 or 11, 12, in that range. But what used to happen to me was, I remember having my first, I wouldn't say it was necessarily a panic attack, but my first, like, the day was stimulating, whatever was going on. I had emotions and I was just not processing them. I was a kid, and I would lay down to go to bed, and it would sound like it would feel like a rising sensation or sound from the back of my brain forward. So it sounded like 10,000 people having a reverberating conversation, and it would start low and build up until like I could hear it in my ears. I could feel it. And then I used to also have, I would go to sleep, or I try to go to sleep, and I would have the sensation of floating off my bed and like tumbling. Like I would actually feel like I would have butterflies on my stomach. So I would like get up, sit up, watch TV, play video games if I had them in my room at the time. But the only
Right.
thing I was allowed to do, I couldn't just turn my now everyone has an iPad or or a phone. Like 12-year-old kids have phones and iPads, and they can just do what the fuck they want in their room. I had a TV in my room at maybe 13, but it was a giant TV the size of a piece of furniture, and if you turned it on, the whole house knew it was being turned on.
Right.
Um, or I had to go sit in the living room, and I did. There were years I would sit in the living room watching Beavis and Butthead reruns to like, from like midnight to like 5 in the morning. My dad would wake up to go to work and just be like, "Oh, you're awake," and I'd be like, "Yep," and he would just go to work, and I would just be like, "I've been up all night," but he wouldn't. He had to go. He had to do stuff. So
Right.
anyway, but so I had to listen to music. I had to figure it out, and yeah.
I
So I
get
still to this day I'm like wondering, like, is it this? Is it that? But I just think it's like the overstimulation. I get very, I don't have I don't know what the right word is. Yeah, I even when I talk to my therapist, I have a lot of trouble, just like I'm kind of now. Like I can articulate, and I think I'm pretty well spoken, but I don't know how to term. My brain doesn't work in word. Even though I'm a poet, words are not exactly my favorite. I like sounds and sights. There's a disorder. It's called syn, syn, synthesia. I can't pronounce it, of course.
I know what you're talking about, and I can't think of the word, but I know what you mean. There's one where you get overstimulated by certain things, and
What certain people who have it is they can taste sounds, they can hear colors and things like that. Some people it's very like heightened. I don't have it to the point where like if I look at you and you start talking, I see the color red or something like that. Sometimes,
I
but
just want to know what the sounds taste like.
so I'll tell you this. So like the way my brain works is, like when I talk to my therapist, I will say things like, yeah, she's like, how did you feel? And I go, I felt like, I'll say like, I felt like I tasted metal in my mouth, or I felt like the color of rhinoceros skin, not gray, not brown, textured, pachyderm type, like stuff like that. Like that's how my brain works. It's colors and sounds, Uh, um,
That's
and
interesting. Yeah.
it's weird. And what happens is certain things, bad memories for me are in the shade of orange. Like think about an old lamp in a room with a lampshade on it, like, and there's
Yeah.
no like fluorescent light in the room. Like think about those rooms in your memory, or like even rooms in the houses that you have. Like when someone has a lamp, the light bulb, incandescent light bulbs, if they're not bought that soft orange, they
Yeah.
start becoming like orangey as they get older. Like my bad memories or old memories, I won't say necessarily bad, are in that shade of orange. It's almost like a burnt orange
I
color.
can picture it. But I wonder why that is, though. I wonder if something happened,
I
like
have
if
theories. I took mushrooms. I don't know if you ever took mushrooms, Megan, but
I have not.
I took mushrooms in 2003, and I talked about this on the last video with Kara, because she's more of a psychonaut than I am, but I could actually go through my memories like a filing cabinet. So after the first 45 minutes or an hour where it's like overwhelming, like you're tripping, you're hallucinating,
Yeah.
it's very controllable mushrooms. Like you can kind of like just like, hey, and talk, and then all of a sudden you just go back into your brain. And I was going through my memories, and I saw some stuff that was like vivid and real and totally happened to me. Nothing like, I wasn't like, like punched in the face or abused, but like just seeing and hearing old things that happened.
Right.
And I've always wanted to do it again, specifically to go like almost go back in time and like see
You
stuff. But then I never did that because I'm like, do I really, really want to know
want
this?
to go there?
Yeah, I don't want
Yeah.
to go there exactly.
Well,
So
once you know, you can't unknow it.
yeah,
So that's
exactly.
the hard part. Yeah, no, that's just like a lot. Let me ask you though, because this is a weird thing that I've been experiencing for a long time. I didn't have the words to say it initially, and I get them confused, but you mentioned it before. I went in one time and I described it to my therapist, and she was like, "Oh no, that's the thing." And then she handed me a book and she said, "I want you to read it so you know you're not crazy." And I was like, "Well, this is a great way to start a conversation." But so I was telling her how occasionally, and I've noticed now that I can put words to it better, that it's only under like extreme periods of stress. But if I was walking through the hall at school or like work or something, um, I would feel like not like I was having an out of body experience, but like I was in my body, but everything was on autopilot. Like it was almost like blurry around my vision.
Hmm.
And like if I moved my hand or something, it would move, but I didn't feel like I did it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, you
It
get like
sounds
tunnel. It's almost like getting tunnel. That is derealization or depersonalization. That's what that is.
That's what that is. And she told me that, and she had me read it because she's like, I could explain it to you, but I just want you to read it so you fully understand that that's a real thing. When I told her, I was like, have I finally lost like my final marble? Like, what is that? And it's very rare, and it really is only under like extreme stress, and it's almost like it's depending on how you experience it, it's almost like your body's way of kind of like protecting itself almost.
Yeah.
Like some people, when you some people develop like another personality or um, some kind of other like PTSD like response. But that's happened to me before, and I thought it was so interesting because I never knew how to describe it, and I didn't know how she was going to react when I even told her, like, is she going to send me over to like Huntington Hospital? Like, what? What
They just push
happened?
the button and you get like dragged out of the room.
She was like, that's like hitting the button. That's very interesting. Yes. Um, no, but she told me, and I felt a lot better about it since then. But it's such a weird sensation too, because you feel a little dizzy, but you just feel like you're not in control of your body, even though you're not out of control.
Yep.
You just kind of are like, I don't know. It's a weird thing to have to describe because like
It's
you're in your body, but you're also separate from your body also.
how that happened. How many times did that happen to you?
Maybe like 10 throughout my whole life, maybe like 10 times.
Yeah, the most recent it happened to me was 2 years ago, maybe. I remember exactly. I was in the bathroom, and
Great start.
yeah, I was in the bathroom doing what you do in there, So I'll just say that. And I, again, this was like 2017. The end of 2016 was when I started. The August of 2016 is when I started therapy. I was in therapy August of 2016. It's the first time I ever walked in there because when you live, as you know, at the peak of anxiety every day, it just becomes home and it seems normal. I'm always this close to like having a panic attack, and that's what would happen once a week, every couple of days, whenever it was, panic or just that like feeling of like out of control. And
Right.
I went to therapy for about 6 months, and I felt like this isn't working. I'm about to stop. And then that December, I went to the hospital. I was working two jobs, literally 20, 19 out of 24 hours a day. I was awake and working, and I just pushed myself too much, and went
Yeah.
to the hospital, etc. Now months have gone by, still dealing with like this high level of anxiety. I had like adrenal fatigue. My pupils were dilated for maybe like 2 or 3 weeks. I couldn't like from producing so much adrenaline. I couldn't like produce any more adrenaline. It was
Right.
very weird. It was a very weird physical sensation. I was dizzy, but well, basically what I'm getting at is I was so my chemicals were all crazy that you're overstimulated so much to the point where like I guess it's the precursor to possibly a nervous breakdown.
Yeah.
Um, and I was sitting in the bathroom and I was having just like one of those weeks where it's like every minute of every day is torture, and you can't. The worst part about it, and I'll get to that. So I'm in the bathroom, and the same thing. It's almost like tunnel vision. So the door, which is 4 feet from where I am, seems like
Mhm.
it's much farther away. I can feel my body, I can see my body, but my hearing, my vision, it doesn't feel like it's my own. I feel like I'm in the back seat of the car. I'm like 10 feet back from my eyeballs in a sense.
Right.
And it's sheer panic, but it's like almost like a euphoric kind of panic where I'm panicked. I don't like it. I don't want this to happen. I'm sweating and I can feel all these physical sensations, but it feels like it's not me. It's not real.
Right.
And for me, the thoughts that I get in moments like that, or I did when I had moments like that, was like, you're actually going crazy. You're going to have a nervous breakdown, or because I'm a hypochondriac, it's the physical stuff. You're about to have a stroke. You're going to have a heart attack, that kind of stuff. So, but yeah, I've definitely experienced that. Not in a while because, progress. I still have anxiety, but I don't allow myself, or that's not the right word. I don't get that far. Like even today, um, because of COVID and just because of what it is, being a hypochondriac, I'm uneasy the past
Yeah.
9, 10 months. Even though I'm still functioning, I live with my family. I work. I started working about a month ago, but every time someone clears their throat, sniffles,
Yep.
everyone's voice, my hearing is so attuned to voice that if I even think, does that person sound like they're getting sick? I start sweating.
Yeah.
Um, because I'm very concerned about like my dad getting sick or just anyone
Yep.
in my house getting sick, and of course myself. So that's how my I can, but I don't. I haven't had a panic attack or got myself, especially to that. Yeah, there's a difference between depersonalization and derealization. They are different, but
Um,
to me, it's about. I'm sure I'm wrong. Correct us in the comments, I guess. But yeah, you like lose your sense of self,
yeah.
physical or mental, and it's
I
just the nervous system is like at the breaking point, basically.
I think one of the ways that I described it so that people would understand, because I've tried to explain this to people who don't experience it, and they do look at me like I'm insane. Like truly, they're like, "Oh, should you be somewhere about that? Like
Yeah.
for a while?"
Why are you
Um,
outside?
yeah, they're like, "Are you on the day pass? That's cute."
Yeah.
Um, but there goes the ADD. My thought is just, come on, come back. Oh God, this always happens to me.
Take your time. I could literally edit this out and make you look so fast and sharp.
So fast and sharp. Um, this happens to you, right?
Every minute of every day. Megan, I had a conversation yesterday with my friend. She goes, "Are you working tomorrow?" She texted me, "Are you working tomorrow?" I go, yeah, I work till 3." And then she goes, "Oh, I thought you were off on Sundays." I was like, do you think today is Sunday? She goes, I asked if you're working tomorrow. So I went back and reread, and she
You're like,
wrote, are you working tomorrow? But my brain sees the first letter of words a lot of times and just like
yeah.
H, hippopotamus, go, like just makes up. It just so I do that all the time. I lose. Not only do I lose, I don't just lose thoughts. Someone will say to me like, "Hey, did you go do the whatever?" But I will hear like something else, and I will go with what I think they said to me.
Yeah,
And
you're like, totally, I went to the zoo. What do you mean?
but 10% of the time it's extremely awkward and embarrassing because let's say for example it is like let's just say this happened in the past, just for argument's sake. I'm not saying this happened, but let's say it happened. A girl I knew that I had a crush on would ask me like, "So are you going to the thing, whatever?" And I thought she said like, "Hey, do you like me?" or something along those lines. And I answered that question, and she's like,
Oh
"No,
no,
I want." And you're like, that. Then all I can think about is like suicide, kill yourself.
that's so awkward.
So yes, it happens to me every minute of every day. I just have learned how to make it fun and just go with the chaos, which is why
Yeah,
I get myself into hijinks all the time, Megan.
hiding.
I'm
Yeah,
a
I get
I'm a handful of a person.
it. Yeah, that's a lot. Wow.
Did you
Okay.
can you did I refresh your memory or no? It's still
Yeah,
gone.
you did. It's just that's I just feel so bad. They're like, are you going to the thing? And you're like, yeah, I like you a lot. Let's go
Yeah,
out. Like,
I'm
what?
like, yeah, totally, me too. Like I'm asking you about the going to CVS. You're like, oh yeah, that's yep, That's why now I'm more quiet now. I'm much more of a quiet person, even though I'm not a quiet person.
No,
Clearly,
I get it.
I just
Oh my
ramble and babble, but
what?
um I don't have to be like the center of attention anymore. I used to have to be the center of attention. I used to have to be the big fat like character actor of the
Chris
group.
Farley?
Yeah.
Oh, what
Oh,
happened?
what did you just do?
I don't know. Where am I?
Your black screen.
Everything's fine. Hold on. Everything's fine.
Okay.
Okay. Here we go. So, what I was saying before, um, just when I was explaining it to people, like I was saying how I've explained the depersonalization, derealization things to people who don't deal with that, and they thought I was crazy. And I feel like I can say that I'm crazy because it's me.
Yeah,
Like I know
fine.
you're not supposed to negative talk yourself, but like I just it's me. I'm allowed, right? Um, but I said one of the things was like you're watching like a POV show, right? Like that's what it feels like in your body. That like you're surrounded in it and it's real, but like the way you're watching it as if it's someone just mounted a camera and that's what's in your place, you know?
Mm-hmm.
It's very weird, but yeah, that's not like a common thing for me. It's just a thing that I've experienced before, and like it's interesting, you know.
It is.
Just
No, don't get me wrong. I'm with you on that. Where
normal secrets.
I am completely interested in, even like I'm gonna watch this when I edit this, and maybe you'll watch this whole thing. Like there are points when you're telling me stories about maybe your dad or whatever, and I can feel myself smiling. These aren't happy stories, but I'm interested
I'm,
because
I'm like, so when my dad died, you're like,
yeah,
yeah, tell me.
exactly. I can't. I'm like my sometimes my face doesn't match my brain. That's a big problem with like anxiety and depression too. People think like you look fine. It's like,
I
yeah,
don't.
but I like for example, like I'm fidgeting a lot. I fidget a lot. So I don't have a fidget spinner. I think fidget spinners are great. When those things came out, everyone was like, "This is bullshit." I was like, "I know." To me, it makes sense because I'm always fidgeting. But me, I fidget with like knives. I play with knives when
Oh,
like
nice.
yeah,
Um,
you know.
no, I definitely get that. It's just like it's just a like I've never been like super fidgety. I don't think. I think there's something I do. My aunt pointed it out to me years ago that when I'm standing and I'm not, I'm sitting right now, but I'll kind of like hit my arms against my legs, and I haven't realized that I'm doing it. And she said that's kind of a thing that I've always done, so that might be like part of it. But yeah, it's just weird. Like, but one of the things too, because people have said that to me a million times, right? You look fine.
Yeah.
And now when people say that to me, like I kind of want to punch them in the throat because just because I've heard it somewhere, I'm like, I'm not. But um, someone said to me once, I think I was at work, and they had a panic attack, but they never had one before, and they thought they were dying. Like they went away by ambulance. They thought they were having a heart attack.
Mm-hmm.
Um, when she came back, I hadn't been there that day, but I was telling her, you know, I understand, like I had a panic attack, or like I had a panic attack yesterday. And she had been sitting next to me, and she's like, well, I didn't know. And I was like, you wouldn't. I'm a pro. Like I'm a pro at this, because when it comes, especially if I'm like in public or somewhere at work where you can't make a scene. I mean, you can, it'd probably be entertaining, but you shouldn't. Um, I kind of just have gotten used to kind of like battening down the hatches and just kind of riding it out, because it will end at some point. And that's one of the things that my therapist told me about, and I've tried to pass on to other people, maybe people not experienced with anxiety, or younger people um, who don't have a lot of experience with it, is like you have to get comfortable with being uncomfortable, right? So when you're uncomfortable and you have anxiety and you're thinking of texting the person, or being angry, or having like an outburst or something, she's like, you have to know that that moment's going to pass. And just in that moment when you're uncomfortable, just understand that, and like don't act out for immediate relief. Because one of my things was, because of everything that's happened to me, which sounds horrible, but I have a lot of issues surrounding being left, like abandonment issues, right? So instead of, if someone didn't text me back, and this is years ago because now I'm like an old spinster and I don't care about anyone, I don't want to talk to anyone. but but if I was like dating someone and they wouldn't answer their phone, I would think they were dead. That's a logical jump, right? Immediately. I
Yeah.
was like, they didn't answer me for 20 minutes, they must be dead, right? But that's happened to me in real life. Like people were dead. Anyway, um, she was like, don't do the thing you want to do to get immediate relief in that situation. Because when someone didn't answer me and I thought they were dead, what did I do? I would call them and I would text them and I would make myself look insane, because my fear and my irrational thoughts were telling me something was terribly wrong, when in fact they could have been sleeping in the bathroom, watching a movie, like all
Any.
the regular things that people do, right? So that was the thing she really talked to me about once. And one time she did, I thought this was really cool. I was dating someone, it was probably like 5 years ago at this point, and when he didn't text me in the morning, I would get nervous because he would go out a lot at night. That's not a red flag. Without me all the time, nothing weird about that. Everything's fine.
It's like, what's that behind your ear? Oh, that's a red flag. Here you go.
I was like, no, he just really likes to go with his friends. Like it's fine. Um, but he didn't text me in the morning. Um, and I was explaining it to her. I was like, if I don't get a text by like noon, I start to feel really anxious and nervous, like something is wrong. Or it was earlier than noon, but just as an example. So she was like, okay, take out your phone. And I was like, no, 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 no. And she was like, let's go through this. Like, let's work through it right now. And I was like, I don't want to do it. Like, she did a little bit of like exposure therapy, because she was like, I am here right now and we can talk it through and we can talk about how you feel in the moment. Like, I really appreciated that she did things like that and kind of like exercises like that with me. Because it would be like, well, what do you feel like right now? And why do you think that? And let's talk about what, and it was just like a kind of deeper dive into the feelings that kind of like surrounded that. And it was very interesting. And I learned a lot because, like I said, even though these issues, like I'm more fascinated about like other people's mental health things, but I learned a lot about my own as well, like through her. So that was good and helpful and also interesting. It's interesting to learn things about like how your brain's functioning.
Yeah, I also agree that immersion therapy works. Um, but I understand. So the way I look at it is through my own research and woo-woo kind of stuff that's out there too, is that basically, look, just use that as an example. So your fear of being left, abandonment. What happens to
All
people?
goes back to dad. Thanks, dad.
Well, it's that, but it's. I'm sure in your case, it's probably mostly, let's say, that. But what's happening now, 20 years later, is the
Right.
brain is just reliving the incident. So
Yeah.
we the biggest part of a lot of mental illness is, not all, but a lot, with anxiety specifically, even depression, I think, and maybe even parts of bipolar disorder, is whatever happens, your brain views it as a traumatic event and logs it away and basically makes like a chemical print of it. And then if something like, or something that triggers that part of the brain, you go into autopilot and you just go through the same emotions, same chemicals are released, and you have the same experience over and over. You keep reliving the same event over and over and over and over again.
Even though it's applied to different things, you still feel all the same things just
Yep, it
because.
just
Well,
exactly. So for example, like let's say you got beat up when you were 10 years old. Someone beat the shit out of you, and yeah, that sucks. It happens. It's bad. It's not so much getting beat up. It's all the things around it. What happened that day, the emotions, the aftermath. Like when you got beat up, did you get made fun of? Did your parents reprimand you? Did they hug you? Did they help you? Whatever it happened, whatever the scenario happened, a series of chemicals before, during, and after are released. And then if it's traumatic to you or whatever, you sort of like save it, like an auto save. And
yeah.
then a year, 6 months, whatever, or throughout your life, if anything happens that makes your subconscious feel like it did that day, you just are going through the same thing again. So PTSD is very specific to that, because guys will go to war, or they'll get, people get raped or beat up or any abused in any way, or just
Right.
something terrible happens. The thing is gone. The thing is not happening, but they are reliving it physically,
Right.
chemically, all the time. So like,
Mhm.
the way I look at myself is I don't have any like specific or horrible traumatic events, but I kind of make up my own terms, and I kind of like, based on my own experience, like kind of like just to help myself, I guess. It's not really for anyone else, but
Right.
having anxiety, it's like you think there's a lion in the room, but there really isn't. So your body reacts as if the brain's in the dark. Your brain
Right.
can't see what's happening, so it thinks when you trigger the chemicals, you need to flee, freeze, flight, or fight. So you need to either stay where you are, run away, or fight. But there's nothing there. The brain doesn't know it, so it just interprets it as it's there. In
Right.
my case, a lot of the times the way I look at it is that it's that I'm afraid. I am both afraid that there's a lion in the room, and I'm also the lion that's in the room. And I kind of create my own madness, and I do, and I know I do. And like, okay, so the other night, like we talked about this early in the video, and we've been, an hour and a half ago at this point, about the price. There's things have a price, and I don't mean it in a dramatic way, like if I watch this show or if I have a drink, I'm gonna like become, it's not a for attention or anything like that, or it's, again, I don't want to make it um, bigger than it is, but
You're not going to turn into a werewolf?
yeah, I there is a price. So if,
Mm.
for example, I used to be, and I've talked about this on videos in the past, obsessed with death, as many people are. So like, I know you like true crime and you like to figure out like who did it and why and all the ins and outs. I used to just skip right to, there was websites, LiveLeak, Ogrish. There's a few other ones out there, and basically you could just watch, like YouTube style, just watch death, murder, death, chaos, mayhem, the worst things imaginable. And I was addicted to it. I would watch it every night for hours before I went to bed, and it was nothing. I was desensitized. But then one day I was talking to my therapist about it, and I've talked about it to her a lot, and she said basically you have like vicarious PTSD. Like you've
Sure.
seen enough people get their head blown off or cut off or die, that like your brain doesn't know the difference between you were there or you weren't there. Now I know there's a big difference, like a tactile, visceral difference between watching someone in front of you die and watching
Right.
it on YouTube. But if you do enough of it virtually, it sort of amounts to the same thing. So I cannot
No.
Like I still have that morbid curiosity where, let's say, for example, what's in the news? Let's say there's a plane crash. We're not going to see that on the news. We'll know about it. We'll hear about it. We'll hear all the, horrible loved ones, blah, 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 blah. But if, let's say, their first responders show up there, sometimes those people film shit and leak it on the internet because they're, whatever. They're people and they just do fucked up shit.
No.
If the video exists, it's on these websites, and I would go watch them and look at the pictures and look at the video of like just the things that unless you experience them in real life, unfortunately, you shouldn't see. I
No.
would do it, and now I don't do that anymore. But I realize the reason why that stuff, like for example, doesn't bother millions and millions of people because that's who watches that shit, is because I do get enamored and enthralled by whatever I'm into: music, movies, entertainment, a person. If I'm in, I'm in. I'm like 100% in. That's the ADD thing. Either I'm scattered, or I'm focused on a million things, which means I'm focused on nothing, or I'm so focused in that I will shirk every aspect of my life to the point of, I mean everything, bathing and changing, just like being a human being, because I'm just days, hours, and like I lose time because I'm
Right.
into the thing. Now, under normal circumstances, when you have a job or a girlfriend or just responsibility, yeah, it's not that bad. Pandemic, I didn't work for 7 months. I
Right.
saw the beast. I saw how easily it could be Monday and then all of a sudden it's Friday. And I'm like,
Right.
what the fuck happened? So I know that if left to my own devices, um, I could, and it's not like I'm hurting myself or anyone else. I'm not doing, and I'm not like stalking people in the night, but I will um, put a bubble around myself. That is part of mental illness, but it's also a big part of my imagination and my creativity. So back to the medication, I'm not against medication at all. I don't judge people for taking it. I don't judge you for taking it or anyone. I know people who take it. Like my friend also, same as you, has emergency Xanax because she understands that if in case of emergency, she loses it. You need the 10 or 15, whatever, how much it is, to just keep you attached to the earth so you don't end up in a hospital or hurt yourself.
It even helps to just know that you have it,
Yeah.
honestly.
Yeah.
Like just knowing that I have it, sometimes if I'm really freaking out, I'm like, okay, well the Xanax is in the bag if I need it. But then I'm like, I don't need it. Like, it just helps to know that it's there,
Hmm.
which is great.
Wait, is your
But
Xanax in a bag? It's not like in a pill bottle. It's like in a Ziploc.
no, but I keep it in a bag. I'm not telling everyone where I keep my drugs.
Oh
Calm
no,
down.
I'm not. You have like a Ziploc of like, I think this is a Xanax. Like, boom. It's like, oh, that's ketamine. Never mind.
I pick them up off people's floors over all the houses that I visited over time.
And I also understand, that idea of, because I know me. I'm not against the medication. I just know that I don't think you could actually abuse some of the medications that are for mental illness, but I think you could abuse a lot of them. I would. I 100. I know me, at least in the beginning, because again, being so like the mental illness part of my brain and the creative part of my brain, they interact, but they also fight. It's like the negative and positive sides of a magnet. So um, I think you know one sometimes complements the other, but I also think I like to refer to the other part of my brain as Mr. Hyde. We talked about this, we joked about this. Like there's a guy in there. I don't have voices. I don't like have another personality. It's not. I don't have any of those things. However, in a way, it is that I
Right.
I like the chaos to the point where I will uh, put myself in a position where I'm too far out away from my safe place. And then
Right.
I know I'm doing it. Like I'm going along with the whatever, the chaos, whatever it is, the fun, whatever it is. It's not like dangerous things, not always. And then by the time I realize I'm way too far to swim back safely to shore without drowning, then I worry. Like that's how I do. I almost compartmentalize, where I go like, all right, if
Right.
I do X, Y, and Z, it's gonna be bad. but X, Y, and Z are great for a little while. So let me do it. I totally can. I'm in total control of it, even though I'm lying to myself. And then 4, 6, 10 hours later, I'm like, I shouldn't have did it. I'm an idiot, and it's too late. It's too late. I got to do
It's too late. Yeah, but I was gonna say, so like for me, and especially in these days where they fully understand how addictive a lot of these things are. So I think in your case, I don't know that they would give you Xanax or something. I think they would give you something that you're supposed to take every day because for the most part, for mild mental illness or disorders, they don't give you that stuff. They give you something you take every day, which is not Xanax. They don't want you to take that every day. They want
it.
you
I
to
know. I
take
know.
if it's super severe, if like I've known people who are like have really severe cases of things, right? But for the most part, they want to give you something that's going to help to balance your mood, um, or keep you more level. You know what I mean? So you don't go shooting off at all different places. But that doesn't necessarily go back to treating your ADD and the reason why your attention span's going into different things or fixating on something at the same time. Do you know what I mean? So it's like it's hard for them to have the whole picture. I don't know. I think it helped. Like definitely helped me, but the annoying part was like trying the meds and having to go back. Let's try this for 2 weeks. Take this for 5 days, and then when you're done with that, move it up to this dose, and then take that, and then come back and let's talk about it. And then I was like, this isn't working. Then I have to go back in. This one's not working either. And then I would say, this one's working, but also my gallbladder hurts. What is that about? And then they would say, that's too much then. We have to lower we have to lower your dose. But then I had to get my gallbladder removed. So it's tricky, but it's worth it. Like you just have to be patient with the process. You have to trust the process.
I
But it's
do, and I at this point in my life, I do. I think I'm more able to trust the process. But I know I'm being presumptuous here, but I know with anxiety specifically, or even like mild depression, the first thing that you usually start with is like Wellbutrin, which is basically an anti-inflammatory, and I think you could probably just get away with taking like turmeric and get the same amount of physical results. I mean, again, I don't want to be. I'm sure I'm going to come off presumptuous, but yeah, I know me. Like I said, like I'm not like an idiot or or a say I'm a masochist of sorts, but I know my brain,
I was like,
and I know when I get into like so the reason why I always sometimes dabble with the idea that I could possibly be bipolar, which I don't think I am. I think at this point my therapist would have been like, should have brought it up or mentioned it. I don't have the mania. I don't have like the low lows for like weeks and months or the high highs for people. It's either a short burst or long periods of time. Not so much, but I definitely dwell in the extremes where for days or weeks or months or whatever, I could just be like hyper vigilant and I'm getting by, I'm fine, I'm functioning, but I'm in the more safe state. And then all of a sudden, for a day or a week or a couple hours, I just will like throw caution to the wind and just I get like it's almost like the way I look at it, it's like I get like a bug up my ass. I'm just like fuck it. There is no rules anymore. It doesn't matter. We're all gonna be dead in 5 minutes. So just do whatever. And I could see myself, and again, I never abused drugs in my life. I mean, I've experimented, like I guess, like everybody, and maybe a little bit more than some people, but
not everybody.
maybe not everybody, but people like normies. But I could see myself going like, what if I just cracked 3 of these and sniffed them, and drank a beer? What would happen? Like I would just do it not because I think I need to get high and escape, but like fuck it, it's fun. I mean,
Yeah.
just the other day I said this like okay, so talking about like having the intrusive thoughts or saying like the awkward things in front of people. I think it was Christmas Eve. It was Christmas. It was either yesterday, which was the Christmas Day. No, Christmas Day was Friday, right? So it was
There
either
you go. There it is.
Friday or Thursday. I can't remember. It's all a blur.
It
But I
doesn't
think
matter.
COVID comes up. Of course, we're all dealing with the pandemic
Right.
and basically like we didn't have like a million people over here, but we had a few. I live with a large family, but we had a few, like 2 or 3 people. And I was nervous about it because I'm a hypochondriac and because it's a legitimate reason to be nervous about it.
Yeah.
But I think my dad said something along the lines of like, it's the holidays and he's a family man, whatever. And I think my response was like, it doesn't matter. We're all circling the drain. That's what I said. We're all circling the drain. Like that's what
Yeah,
comes to my brain. Like it doesn't matter. It's just it all goes to the same place. Like
I get it.
yeah. So like, and again, I wasn't being like dark or because that's how it looks to other people, I assume. But that's
Right.
my like you said, we're the place that most people, normal people, average people, go to in dire times of grief or chaos. We're there often.
Always.
So it's almost like fun because we have to you have to make friends with the dragon, otherwise you're going to get gobbled up.
Yeah.
So yeah, I do. We get overwhelmed, but like with the pandemic, specifically the pandemic, because it's what's going on now. You know, I think both sides of the spectrum we're seeing right now, people are either completely freaked out, they don't want to do anything because they're scared to get sick, or people are like literally walking the streets without masks and fighting against it. They are
Right.
both fear. It's just different sides of the coin. People want to pretend that it's nothing because that makes them feel more comfortable. And then the other people are, the other way where they're like, this is real and it's serious and I don't understand why we can't come together on it. But then me and people like us in the middle are like the things that come to my brain, again being a visual audio visual brain, are quotes from movies. And the kind of movies aren't like always the deepest movies. Like the Joker is in my head pretty much at least 4 times a day. And every time I see people do a thing or act like how I'm saying, like, fighting and there's chaos or bombing in Nashville the other day, like, people are on edge and we're seeing it in real time. I just think to myself, like, when the chips are down, these civilized people, they'll eat each other. And like, I just like believe it. Like, I am ready. Like a few months ago, I'm sure you were maybe in the same headspace. I'm not, maybe, I'm not sure, but when it first, like I stopped working in March. By April, I was supposed to go back to work. They were like, "You ready to come back to work?" I was like, "Are you fucking kidding me?" Like now it's like super serious.
Yeah.
By May, people were shooting off fireworks here from like May till about September. For
Yeah. It's
nothing better
wild.
to do. And I have my windows open every night, and I really my anxiety, my projecting, my intrusive thoughts most nights, I guess for the first few months of the pandemic, I was waiting to hear the sounds of a riot. I was waiting to
Yeah.
hear the sounds of a few gunshots and then screams through the streets. And here comes the whole town losing it and going house to house, causing chaos. And I was just every night mentally prepared for like fisticuffs in the street. Like I was prepared.
Yeah, it was a wild, that was a wild time for sure. It was the only time because there's definitely a feeling of unrest. Like, I'm not like a weapons person. I mean, that's not true. But like, I'm not like a super like gun person, like personally. But
Hmm.
I like would like sure wish I had a shotgun right now just in case. Like,
Yeah.
just to like have something. There was even like over the summer before I moved, there was this guy who was just breaking into people's houses, or he hadn't yet. He was like in people's backyards and stuff, but because of my knowledge of true crime and understanding that this person, he's going to escalate to the next level. If he's already
Yeah.
in your yard, he's already trying to break into cars, he's looking for ways to get into the house. He wound up breaking into someone's house, just like I said. I started sleeping with a screwdriver next to my bed just in case he decided to come through my window, and I would say, "You picked the wrong house, motherfucker," and I would stab him in the eye. That was my plan. It didn't happen, but there was definitely a feeling of like unrest, and people are starting to just like bug out because they feel stressed. They don't know how to handle it. Like crime is rising. People don't have money. That's one of them.
Yeah.
So like robberies and stuff like that. But people also, there's just this general feeling of like anarchy where like even in the city you see people like shoving people in front of the subway like way more than normal, which is weird to say, but it does happen
Yeah.
normally. um but it's just like Rick Moranis got punched in the face. Like, what?
Yeah, well, all right. That was for me, I was like, really the nicest, most,
Rick Moranis? I know.
yeah, that was a lot. But I do agree. So like, yeah, and how you feeling? We're at like almost like the 2 hour mark. Are you like getting tired, or you? Because I could just keep talking forever. I mean, it just doesn't matter to me.
I think my phone's actually gonna die soon.
All right, well, all right, let's do 5 more minutes and then we'll stop. But social media, I realized, and I think a lot of people, and I had conversations about this, realized that on one end of the spectrum, social media was perfect and great for now because we actually can communicate with each other even though we can't see each other. But also, it is the worst thing because if you just keep looking at social media, the time suck of social media, you're going to make yourself feel, it makes things seem worse than they are because it's just pure ego and id on social media. It's just people spouting out their most angry, fearful, catastrophic thoughts. And if all you're doing is absorbing that, like if you hit that magnifying glass thing on Instagram and go to the page of like, here's what we think based on your algorithm you would like to see.
Are they like explore page?
Yeah, the explore page. It's going to be just, it's like, oh, were you having a good day? Well, by the way, guess what's terrible's going on, and now you know. And it's almost like a masochistic sort of thing. But there's been like 5 documentaries this year just specifically about algorithms and the manipulation. But the truth is, and I believe, like, do I believe Zuckerberg is like like a crazed lunatic? No, he just made a product, and yeah, it's about selling us crap, but we made it worse. People don't want to take responsibility. Whatever you're seeing on especially Instagram is
Right.
based on what you're looking for. You're getting a reflection of what you're looking for. Oh boy.
It's getting weird.
Is she licking your head?
Looks that way.
Yeah, that's what it looks like. She's licking the cone. So I mean, again, we've been talking for 2 hours, but social media and mental illness, on one end of the spectrum, you can get a lot of free information and support, or you can get all the triggers you could ever imagine that will make things worse. So it's like
No,
double.
it's true.
Yeah.
Like, luckily for me, sorry, I'm trying to like adjust this. The things I've been looking up lately have been really not like benevolent, but like I watched the series Selena. You know Selena Quintanilla.
Yeah, my sisters and my mom watched it too. Yes.
Oh my god. So the wigs were terrible, let's just say. But it just reminded me of the story, and that story really interested me because I really loved Selena when I was little. But so after that, I was kind of looking up her family, seeing kind of like where are they now. So my explore page is like all Selena stuff right now.
That's
So
nice.
that's not bad.
Yeah.
No, it's not bad at all. But like I've looked into like I know you mentioned before people being fascinated with like death and stuff. And I love the Facebook channel Ask a Mortician because it's not about gory things happening to people at the time. It's like what happens when people die and like answering questions about that. And that's really interesting to me. Or she talks about that
I love her channel.
Oh, you watch her too? I love her.
What's
But
her
she
name?
oh god, now that you asked me, I'm not gonna be able to remember. God damn it. I love her so much. I know her name, but now I can't remember because you asked.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot. But she does these my cat's seriously eating my hair right now. It's gross.
I see that.
She talked about this one. Who was that Russian? Was it Stalin or was the other one?
Yeah, well, yeah, it was Lenin.
Yeah,
they preserved his body.
But like it was so crazy because they kept piling on, like they started replacing his body with like wax and stuff, and they kept him on display. So like maybe that's like unhealthy to learn about that, but I think it's really interesting. And also, here's something else I learned. A while back, when I used to commute to work, which I haven't in a very long time, I've been working from home. So I would notice sometimes that music would really affect my moods.
Yeah, big time.
But here's what's weird though. If I would listen to like a true crime podcast on the way to work, I had no anxiety because my mind is focused on someone else's problem. I was like thinking about, oh, well, who did it in that scenario? Or like what happened with them? Or where are they now? Or like what, instead of thinking about like my problem that sometimes like music would make me feel too many feelings about or something like that. But it's definitely very interesting.
No, that makes a lot of
And
sense. Music is a big inspirational thing and also a trigger. So I, again, being more masochistic of a person, and you can probably relate. If I'm in a bad mood, I have two things I could do. I can listen to music that's gonna put me in a better mood, or I can just turn the knife.
I listen to music that makes me more mad or like
Yeah,
expresses the anger. I definitely do that 100%.
yeah. If I'm sad, for example, if I'm in a sad mood, like depressed or heartbroken, whatever it is, I could I could put on electronic music and uplift myself, or listen to like just like anything that like I consider like uplifting. It might not be necessarily uplifting music, but I consider it uplifting. Or I could put the Smiths on and just listen to that.
Yeah, like why don't you want to turn on music that's just going to make you cry until you get a headache instead?
Yeah, I mean, well, I won't cry. I don't do that. I mean, again, this is a conversation I've had with friends before. It's not like I don't let myself. I just don't. I mean, I could probably count how many times like tears have come out of my eyes in the past decade, and
Right?
that's another hour-long conversation in and of
Oh my
itself.
God.
But yeah, like music is a huge factor, and that goes along with what I was saying before about you get to that fork in the road, and you have two choices. You can do the thing that's going to continue on the path of the predisposed condition or thought pattern or whatever, or the other way. Now, I admit that I'm in a place in my life now where I know how much I could let the monster play without it getting out of control.
Right.
So I do that. I will, especially with music. If I'm in a bad mood or I'm angry or if I'm just feeling like just rage, like just that rage you feel where you're just like everything's fucking shit. And because
Yep.
music to me just fills my head with images of nothing to do with the music. It's like most of the music I love, even though I'm a huge addict for music,
Right.
I don't know most of the lyrics to most of the songs I love. I mean, I
Really?
know a lot of them. Yeah, I just like, to me, a song will play and I will just fill in the blanks on my own. Like this song makes me think of X, Y, and Z, whatever.
That's interesting.
And I often ask people like, what do you see when you hear this song?
Right.
And I want to hear like what you see, like what comes up to what do you imagine in your brain when you
That's
hear?
really interesting. When I hear a song and I love the song, I need to know all the words immediately. Like, I'll listen to a song, I'll find a song, and this has happened lately with me. I found two artists that I like, which is rare for me because I don't usually listen to newer stuff. I listen to a lot of classic rock or like 80s or stuff like that. So I found two artists lately that I like, and I found these like maybe like six songs that I was just immediately really drawn to, and I just had to learn the words immediately. And within a few days, I could sing the songs like I had known them for years. Like it's just like I don't know, it's weird, but
We're on two different sides of the spectrum. In fact, I often listen to music that's not in English because I don't want to know the lyrics. So I listen to a lot of
that's interesting too.
African music where it's literally in like multiple. There's a myriad of languages in Africa. I listen to a lot of it could be anywhere from rock to whatever, but Spanish.
I was gonna say you should listen to Selena.
I do look. I do love the movie. I'm not gonna lie. Like I like that movie a lot. I did not watch the series, but yeah, I listen to like salsa music. I listen to like there's a big again, I'm a music junkie, so I know a lot about like there's like Nigerian rock from the 70s that's sort of unknown, but like it's all like not in English. There's
I
Vietnamese
want to check that
rock
out.
from the 60s and 70s. It's all like Vietnamese, I guess from the soldiers in Vietnam, like brought soul music over there. So like there's soul music,
But
but
how did you even like find that? Did you just
because
like did you YouTube like Nigerian rock music from the 70s? Like
no,
how
I just that's why I love Spotify. Spotify will like
yeah.
Spotify. People hate Spotify because yes, it doesn't give the artists the money they deserve. But I've been listening to Spotify since like 2010 or 11, like a long time
Mhm.
ago. And Spotify playlists are scarily good,
Yeah,
where it's like, hey, here's a playlist we made based on a dream you had. You're like, oh shit, like like awesome.
that's crazy.
But I
Yeah.
also do look. I do look for stuff. I do look for like and YouTube will do the same thing. YouTube, you start listening to one type of thing, you start clicking other things like related videos, and before you know it, you're in another. And I like to discover new music all the time because
Yeah.
my brain is a visual audio thing, and music does soothe the savage beast in me. It does. It
It's
absolutely
so
does. So
beautiful.
I will spend like last night. You you started me off with what was that? What's that song? Um, she's only 16. What's who's the guy? What's the guy's name?
She's just 16 years old.
Yeah,
It's horrible. What's
yeah,
that song? It's Into the Night by Benny Mardones.
yeah, yeah.
Is that
Into the
I don't
night.
know if
So
he says the same Mardones.
you like, hey, you want to watch a creepy music video? I'm like, of
So
course.
creepy.
I watched that video and it's extremely creepy. I will put the link in.
Skeletor put a wig on.
I will put the link in the description. I want people to watch this. This was pop music. This is not like a snuff film. This is a real video that probably played on MTV in the early '80s,
Yep, 100%.
and it's extremely creepy, but it's also super catchy, and it is in the vein of like Journey and Foreigner and all those bands from
Yeah.
the late '70s.
Do you know what was annoying to me about that song? So I've heard it before. I love 80s music, like, right? But it was one of the songs that, like, I just kind of heard in passing. And the only part that ever stuck with me was the chorus, the, like, If I Could Fly part, that
Yeah.
crap, right? So my sister, I guess she was working and she heard it the other day and she was like, these are the lyrics to this song. It's so weird. And I thought she was talking about a different Into the Night 80s song.
Yeah.
So then she was like, no, go listen to it right now. So I pulled it up. When I pulled it up, I happened to find the music video
Mm.
and just, it was, oh my God. Like
I watched
who,
it. I
what,
watched it.
no,
You
I know, like what executive was like, this is a great idea.
Well,
Like,
what I
what,
was saying last night. So just to give everyone I'm going to put the link down there. You can click it and take a look for yourself. But it's about a 30-something-year-old musician who is in love with a 16-year-old girl and is going to her house, and her dad's like, "No, Buster, no, no, not today, Buster Brown." And he's like obsessed. So he's like at her window singing. There's a
with his hand on the window. He's like,
Yeah, oh God, it's basically a song about statutory rape / sexual assault. I mean, I guess that's what we in today's standards.
yeah,
But there's a scene where they're like on a rug together, and they're like,
don't ruin it.
and anyway. But I made the joke to you that they would allow this full-grown adult to have a moment with this probably actual teenage girl who's
He
in the
looks
music.
really young.
Yeah,
Yeah,
she might be 20, but she looks 16. Shit.
no.
But their one stipulation was like her skirt should be below her knees because she's a lady, and like that's
She,
the kind of crap like executives will kind of
she is a
pull.
lady.
But yeah, but music. So now that I listened to that song, that leads me to just that era of music. So I was
No, me
listening.
too. I go on like a journey, much like that magic carpet ride from the video that we will not continue to discuss and ruin it for everyone. Um,
It's so good.
takes me on a magic carpet ride. Um, yeah, no, that song was creepy. Do you remember how I told you about? I'm not gonna take up everyone's time with the story about it, but remember how I told you about that creepy teacher from high school?
Yeah,
Yeah. Well, was telling my sister about that, and she was like, he definitely listened to this song in the car, like before school every morning.
yeah. No, well, I do remember you telling me about that. And do you
Yep.
still, obviously I know you don't keep in touch with him, but do you still like have tabs on the guy? Like, is he?
No, I actually, I don't know. I like tried to find him. I don't know why. Like I'm just really curious. Like I'm curious like what has become of his life since then.
Like, is he a registered sex offender at this point?
Yeah, I don't know because there's a few articles, but um I think he served some time. Like I'm not entirely sure because this was kind of like a more rural community that he was being a creep in. So basically, long story short, just for context, because it's annoying if no one has any context. Um, when I was in ninth grade, there was a creepy teacher who at the time didn't seem creepy. He seemed like very like helpful and like nice and like I'm looking out for you, like that kind of stuff. But turned out he was creepy, and I'm not going to go into all the details. But um, fast forward to he got fired
Of
for
course.
something unrelated to being a creeper.
So wait, he got fired for not creepy stuff.
Yeah, so he got fired because he didn't have his masters and he needed his masters for tenure and like he didn't get it in time or something like that. Um so he got fired or like let go, maybe then like fire him, whatever. So this it's same thing. He wasn't there anymore. So he emailed me after and I don't remember like if I was like, here's my email. Like I don't remember if he just looked at I don't remember how he got it. But so my dad died and I either told him or he happened to email me because he heard or like whatever. And he was like, do you want me to come there? And I was like, no, like whatever. But he was like, here's my phone number. And for me, I was like, that's too weird now. On top of the other things that had happened. So I was like, that's too weird for me. And I stopped answering. So several years went by, and I was regaling someone with the tales of his creepiness. And I just decided to Google him um, and see what was happening. And it turned out, so he moved to upstate New York. Um, and he was caught having an affair with a student who was like 15,
Yeah.
the same age that I was when he was being a creeper and literally giving me candy. Like, don't take candy from older men. Like, you don't need to have it. I don't care how much you like it. Don't take it. Um, but they actually were having an affair, and like her parents found out, and he was charged, and like all this stuff. So that's like the long story short context, just for like so you know what we're talking about. Um, but yeah, I looked him up, and it looks like he still lives not right in that area, but he still lives somewhere upstate New York. I can't imagine like what must that do to your life, right? Like who hires you?
Yeah, I
I
mean,
don't, I don't know if you had to register for anything, like a felon.
let's put his name on the bottom of the screen.
No, oh my God, he's gonna murder me.
That's how you
I don't
die.
need, I don't need that kind of heat.
No, I
um,
get it. I mean, I get it. I understand that. Um, I think in the same way. I have no sympathy for people who do that thing where they, abuse a minor. But then you have to think, all right, you fuck up, you do something to someone that is, will possibly ruin their life.
right,
You serve your time, you get out, you go whatever, you get back into society. Whether people are agree with it or not, irrelevant. That's how the system
right,
works. You get back out there. Now what? Because
right. What do you do?
I know someone. My sister works with a person, or did work with a person, who was in the exact same circumstance where they were a pedophile. They served time and they got out of jail. Now the only job they can get is like menial, bullshit. So he worked with her
Yeah.
and she liked the guy. He was a nice guy. He like bought her Christmas presents and but
But that's what I mean. Like
you always
he,
assume.
he was a nice guy, but that's exactly what I mean. Like you don't
Yeah.
know, and especially like my mom asked me. I only just told her like this full story, like kind of recently, within the last few months, and I told her she was she's horrified. Um, I kept telling her I was like nothing weird happened. Like don't go there, you know. But
she was like, why didn't you tell me any of this? And I was like, well, this is going to sound messed up, I feel like. I was going to be like, honestly, like, I didn't hate the attention. And I don't mean in the creepy way. I mean in the, like, adult has my back kind of way.
I get it.
Because he, like, looked out for me and, like, made sure that, like, teachers all were, like, fair to me and stuff like that. Because he was, like, an assistant to the teacher. You know what I mean? And it was like stuff like that. So it wasn't like an overtly creepy, but that's how they get you,
Yeah,
right?
well, I believe the term is called grooming.
No. Yeah. No, but it really wasn't like, it didn't feel creepy at the time. Like, it didn't feel creepy to me till later. But like to an adult, they would be like, well, none of this is right. That he's like saying, he literally threatened to fight someone on my behalf once. Like, it's
Yeah.
super weird.
Yeah, so I get it. On one hand, that seems so nice,
But
but
as a ninth grader in high school, but when you're a 40-year-old man, like, that's obviously not normal behavior.
I
Just
mean, if you wanted to go for another 3 hours, we can dive into that nonsense and talk about, like, like, again, I agree with you. I don't believe you like the attention because, like, it was sexual or anything
No,
like that. It was just like you were a
no,
kid. He was a cool older adult teacher, whatever. But then
he
you can unpack it all, and it's like,
no, I know, but like, he didn't ever say anything weird, but like, as an adult looking back on him now, he did say flirty things, but he didn't say gross things. You know what I mean? So it's like, it still felt like a safe space. It's just
and
weird.
and I don't know if I particularly love the direction that we've taken the video, but and just as an example, when I was in high school, my English teacher was retiring. He was like, in his 60s. His
Right.
wife of 30 years was his student and the mother of his children.
What?
So, like, when he was a teacher back in the, I guess, the early 80s, I assume that's how long ago it was. I graduated high school in 2001, so maybe 25 years prior, in the mid to late 70s, he was married. He was a teacher. He was married, a young teacher in his 20s. He married a girl that graduated, from the high school. So
I love them.
graduated, they were married. I have to assume, safely assume, they were fooling around while he was her teacher, while she was underage.
What's
But
wrong with people?
and again, this is where this is the weird gray area of that, idea of an older person taking advantage of a younger. That's what it is. No matter how it's a power thing. But he was in love with her. He was in. Let's say just say for argument's sake, he was 25. She was 17 or 16. They were screwing around. She graduates. They start dating. They get married. They have children, and they stay married for 30 fucking years. So was what he did wrong? Maybe under the eyes of the law, but obviously shit like that went down. It happened.
That's like a whole, yeah, that's like a
It
whole.
happened. So I think that maybe.
Wait, hold on. Are you saying you think he was my soulmate and that's why I'm an
No, no,
old
no, no.
person?
I'm saying I think in these predicaments, these cases, let's just say for argument's sake, 5% of the time, there's legitimate feelings between a 38-year-old guy or a 25-year-old guy and a 16-year-old girl. It's not appropriate, but
No,
it happens, and it actually ends up being. Look at Dee Snider of Twisted Sister. When he met his girlfriend, she was like 14, and they've been together for
no,
like 30 years, 35 years.
not okay. Same with
Not.
Elvis.
It's not okay. I
No,
am not saying it's okay. I'm just saying there are more than one example of something starting like that, completely from the outside, inappropriate and wrong,
I don't
and
like it.
becoming a fucking family. So, is there mental illness there? Is the
Yeah,
person who's 14 mentally ill to be going with a
no,
28-year-old, or is a
no, it's the
20-year-old mentally
adult. It's the adult.
the adult? Okay.
It's the adult. Because for me, speaking from my own personal experience, unfortunately, um, especially someone who like had, my dad was sick. He was in the hospital. He wasn't, I don't know how to say this, but I'm just going to say, like, he wasn't a great dad. He wasn't a dad. He was a adult friend that I had. Like, he didn't do any of the caretaking, right? Because he didn't have the capacity. And I'm not saying that to like shame him, but it's the truth, right?
Mm-hmm.
So for someone like me, if you want to use like daddy issues, like, okay, but right at the time where all this is happening, I'm going through all these things, and there's this adult man at school who could have been my father, who's like kind of like taken me under his wing. It's a trap. It's a trap for sure. But to me, I'm not thinking of it like he's thinking of it. I'm thinking of it like, oh, this guy's like looking out for me and like whatever. And I'm not really questioning his motives because I'm just a little baby troll. I don't know, you know? So I don't think it's the kid's fault.
No. I would never blame. I'm not blaming the kid.
No, but you're saying
Um,
like, where does the mental illness lie in a situation like that? And I think it involves the adult,
yeah.
whether it's a male or female.
Yeah.
Like,
No, I agree. I think it happens. I think it's equally. Okay, maybe not equally, but females in the past 20 years, we've seen many female teachers
right.
banging their students. It's very common, unfortunately,
Yeah.
and the stigma doesn't go both ways publicly. So
No, it doesn't.
me, an adult white male, being sexually attracted to openly and actively trying to bang a high school student, I'm going to jail, and they're gonna fucking, in jail, I'm gonna get treated like they're gonna get murdered. When a
Yes.
female does it, she's also gonna go to jail, hopefully. But it's like this weird male female, if a 16-year-old boy is having sex with a 24-year-old teacher, it's almost like men are like, yeah, awesome, high five, and they lose even me at 16, let's just say I wasn't me at 16. So me at 16 was, I had no game, and I definitely wouldn't have been like, it's not like I didn't have the mental capacity to handle like what sex was, but
Right.
I would have been getting taken advantage of. There would have
Right.
basically been a person in power with a more experienced intelligence manipulating me, even if she didn't know she was doing it, into
Right.
doing something I shouldn't be doing. But if I had done, let's say I had sex with a teacher in high school. So I knew guys in high school had sex with teachers. It happened when I was in high school.
Yeah.
And some of them, yeah, whatever. Anyway, and if it had been me, I think, yeah, I might not look so fondly at it now. You know what I mean? Like, there's that whole male bravado bullshit of like, you fucked, high five, it's awesome, but you were raped essentially.
Yeah.
It might not have been by force, but you were taking advantage of. You were sexually assaulted. But it's a weird social. I don't understand society in that. I don't get it. Why is
Right.
that not looked so badly upon, but the other way, male and female, it is. And it's the same thing. It's rape, it's sexual assault, it's bad. It's definitely, like you said, it's not the kid's fault. Even if the kid is 100% into it, they don't really understand. Even at
Well,
16, when I knew I was really smart, I understood sex and whatever. I don't think I was like mentally prepared, or not mentally prepared, but more like understanding like what was happening to me. You know what
right.
I mean? Like I was being groomed, and
Right.
maybe you did, even though you didn't know it, and even though he didn't know it. It just is a thing. It's a non-verbal, invisible. You give off like he knows one way or another. You're the kind of person he wants to prey on because
Right.
you're positively reacting to his support. You know what I mean? So,
And his Willy Wonka candy that he kept in his pocket.
well, this was back in. I mean, you're a little younger than I am, but like, what is this? Like, late '90s, early 2000s?
This was in the early 2000s. This was probably like 2002.
All right, so I was right out of high school. I was in college, but when I was a kid in the '90s, there was always like a flyer would go through the school of like a guy in a white van trying to sell Nintendo tapes or some shit.
Nintendo. Yeah.
Nintendo tapes, yeah. Smarties on a fishing line trying to like catch a kid in the playground or whatever, and you just didn't. Back then I mean, it's a problem. I mean, obviously we've gone off the rails at this point in this video,
Off the rails.
but it is a problem still to this day. I mean, to this day, the sex is not, in my opinion, dealt with properly at the right age. Because if we just stopped pretending we're some puritanical culture, and from like 4, 5, 6, 7, sex, not the physical act of sex, but just the other dynamics of it, were there was an education around it. I don't think there would be as many monsters and victims. I think
I have a lot of friends that have kids, and I saw something interesting that they were sharing on Facebook about using the proper names for everything and not making it like immediately destigmatizing it and not explaining anything to them that they're not prepared to know or take on, but just like, they're like, if someone touches your whatever, who, whatever kind of child this is, that's wrong, and you need to tell mommy and daddy that this happened, like, and they're teaching that, and I appreciate that, because a lot of times before they didn't have the right words to know, or they just thought it was like normal. But I guess that's like a thing people are teaching their kids now, very young. So that's good, but there's still definitely like works to be done. But like, what is this guy doing now? Is he like waiting outside the high school in his like old like beat up brown station wagon? That's what I picture.
I
It's just like,
imagine, because a lot of them who have served time, he's not a teacher anymore, obviously, but he's probably,
no.
he probably works at like 7-Eleven or has a
No.
bullshit job. And is that like, he's like the 55-year-old guy who is working with like the 17, 18, 19, 20-year-old kids that's their first job, but that's the only job he can get. Like, that's the position he's in. And, I feel like a lot of them, because I've watched all the YouTube To Catch a Predator stuff,
I love that show.
there's a small chance he may never ever try to do that again, of course. But I do believe part of it's an illness. Part of it is it actually is an illness. But I also believe, and I know this might not be a popular thing, there's some ancient thing in us, because at certain points in history, and I'm talking about a long time ago, not 100 years ago, like thousands of years ago, it was fertile male and fertile female, and that was it. Age was irrelevant. So
Well, let's be honest. It's always just been men taking whatever they want through the ages.
yeah, I agree with that. But now look at modern society. So with modern
It's still men
society,
taking whatever they want.
I feel like the reason why less women are monsters. There are women who are monsters. Some people don't want to believe that, but there are 100% of women who are fucking monsters,
That's
sexual
true.
predators. But
Yeah.
it's mostly women, and my opinion is it's not like an innate male thing. It's that I'll use you as an example. I'm speaking to you. You're my friend. When you were growing up, you had a mother and an older sister, and when you went through because women have physical, you get your period, there are actual things that, like, now it has to be spoken about. You can't just like be on your own and deal with it by yourself. But as far as being a male, in my personal experience, my dad was not a predator or a monster or whatever, but he had no education, sexual education whatsoever, other than what he learned on the street with his friends, and neither did I. I never got
I get what
like the talk ever.
right.
Now, and this might sound, this is kind of embarrassing, but like, my parents never spoke to me about sex ever, about, I think my dad, when I was younger, might have told me things like, you never hit a girl, stuff like that, but never anything about like, nothing sexual or nothing, no power dynamic. There was no, that conversation didn't exist because he never got
Right.
that. But when I was in college and finally started being sexually active, let's say, we'll say that, I think somehow they knew, one way or another, like I was having sex or whatever. And I don't even think they even brought it up. I think my dad might have said something to me like, just be careful. Like that was it. Meaning wear a condom, don't have a baby or
Good
18.
advice.
But that was it. That's all I ever got in my whole life. Everything
Right.
I know, the fact, and I'm not patting myself on the back here, and you know me, I'm not a creep in any stretch of the imagination. I definitely have I definitely do things I think might be like fucked up. I mean, I'm not perfect, but I'm
Mm.
not like a person who prays or manipulates in the sense that my experience with having friends who are female, like yourself and other people, you know how it goes. I've heard how it goes, and a lot of it I'm aware of.
Yeah.
I have male friends like who tell me like insane shit, and I've said gross shit in the past, but I don't have this like innate, automatic like the only thing I want to do is manipulate whatever the dynamic is into sex.
Right.
I've had sex. It's great. I like it. Whatever. It's consensual every single time. But at no point in a friendship, for argument's sake, am I like, oh wow, that's a great observation you made. By the way, can I interest you in some penis in this hard times that we're in right now? Like, I never try to like fold in.
I wonder if anyone's tried that. Like said that exact line.
Well,
I
no,
bet.
no, of course. Like that's me. I'm too articulate to even do. Like what you get is the most blunt force trauma version of that. Where it's like, wow, hi, here's your face. By the way, fuck, and like that's what you normally get. Like it's just like there's no segue. It's like,
No.
hi, my name is Jeff. Here's my dick. What do you think? Like, and that might even be a nice way of it, because I'm sure you've put people you've sent me screenshots of certain dating text message, and so have other people, and I always think like, why? It in my head, I think on a level it must work 1 out of 100 times, otherwise they wouldn't do it. But then I think maybe it just never works, and it's
You
desperation.
just keep
I don't
doing
know.
it.
I don't know.
I don't know. My therapist actually said that before. I don't remember why we talked about this. I think I saw her while I was in relationships and also between them. And she said like about stuff with the apps too and these messages people sent because she had kids, you know. And she was like, it has to work. It had to work at least one other time.
At
Like
one out
for
of a
them to
hundred.
keep doing that. Like it has to.
But at the same time, um, I don't think it works most of the time. I think 1 out of 100's, I think, generous. Maybe 1 out of 1,000. One time out of 1,000, just being.
But it's like a numbers game basically. So if
Yeah,
they do that every
but
day, if they're just
the
ripping through all
numbers.
the numbers.
The numbers game doesn't have to be gross. I mean, for me, a numbers game is like when I was using dating sites, which I haven't in a while. Let's say instead of messaging one specific person, I'd do 10, right, and hope one responds. But that numbers game is like, I'm going to send 50 dick pics a night, and by the end of the week, maybe one of those women, maybe a 1 out of 500, are going to be like, you know what, fuck it. And but me, okay, so the reason why I've never done it and never will is because let's just say I said, fuck it, I'm going to do it. I'm going to just go on POF and just send 50 dick pics a night, just hi, and here's my penis. Hi, my penis, whatever.
Actually, no, do that as an experiment, but send someone else's.
No, I'm not going to do it even as an experiment with someone else's. But
Right.
what I'm getting at is, let's just say 1 out of 500 says, "Yep, I'm into it." I, being so paranoid and suspicious, would be like, "Yeah, no, you're a murderer." I wouldn't trust it. I would never send my penis picture to a person and then say, "Yes, please, I want that," and be like, "Yeah, that's exactly what a killer would say." I won't like be like, "Okay, great, let's text now, and I'll meet you at the Comac Motor Inn," or whatever the fuck happens. Like, I won't go to the next step. So
Right.
it's just not for me. I find my method works just fine. I mean, not right now. Obviously, I'm not really into dating. I tried a few months ago. I don't know about you, but I tried a few months ago. I was seeing someone for like a couple weeks, and it just didn't work out. And I just was like, no, it's too stressful right now to like be in physical contact with anyone in general. But
I just like don't. I'm in this kind of weird place where sometimes I just look. Like I just look at the sites, but the minute someone messages me or like tries to talk to me, I'm like, oh, I'm not ready, and I just shut it down every time because like I'm not ready to like give someone all my attention, and like I've done that my whole life. My whole life has been about doing everything for other people, being devoted to other people, being loyal to other people, to the point where I would give everything I had, like literally everything, all the emotion, money, like whatever, to the point where I would have nothing left. And now that I have stopped doing that and I see what it's like to just like not give just everything away to anyone, I don't want to just start doing that again. You know what I just
No, I know. I get it. I
meh,
get it. I
it's not
mean,
worth it.
I definitely am a giver, so I found that in my worst relationships, it was completely one-sided. I was
Yeah.
giving everything and getting almost nothing in return. But
No,
not
nothing.
really. I don't date just anybody either, so like I won't even pursue
Well,
some.
apparently I did. Literally, just like anybody.
Well, I mean, you've divulged lots of information to me, so I do understand what you're talking about. Because I have specific examples in my
Like
brain.
the professor.
The professor always. Every once in a while I go through my Dropbox pictures because I sync my cell phone pictures to my Dropbox so I don't lose
Yeah.
them. And I have a good sequence. They're somewhere in there. I don't know where they are. I can't like pull them up at any given time. But every once in a while, I'll just like scroll through like, what do I have? What's all this bullshit? And I have like a good 8 to 10 pictures of wristwatches and socks. And I don't have a face. I don't know. I still to this day don't really remember what he looks like. He might have shown me one face of
It's
his.
probably better that way. Just let him live in your memory as
But
watches and
I
socks.
just see like a close up like that, and I'm like, oh, that guy.
It's not even like a good watch. It's like a fossil. Like what?
Yeah, no, he's a douche. I mean, no judging, no judgments here, but
Not judging based on his clothing, judging based on his presentation of himself and his
but
personality and his terribleness.
well, I'm not. No, what I'm saying is I'm not judging you. I don't judge you. I don't you. I don't. I'm not one of those people who like gets the information from a friend and like says
No,
things to
like
you.
no, but like how could you like I don't know. Because I feel like especially when you meet someone, you're just seeing what happens. So how can you judge the person? Like I was just seeing what happens. I just
Yeah.
happened to just be seeing what happens, but also sharing it with you.
No, no, I know, I know. I'm just stating the fact that like I don't, because I know you understand what I mean when I'm saying that
Yeah,
like
I get it.
you tell people things and they go like yeah, 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 and then as soon as they're not talking to you like, oh, that fucking idiot or whatever they say. I don't know what they say.
Oh my God.
I don't do that sort of thing. I don't like get the information, the juicy facts or whatever, and then
Right.
like use them against the person or feel a certain type of way about it. Like
Right.
I don't think like you did. I agree. I understand what you mean. Like you wanted to see what was going to happen, and
And I
you,
did, and it was
you
terrible.
saw
And then
what you saw was just shite. It was garbage. It was just
yeah.
I get it, and I don't have the same experience. My dating experience is not. I don't have to date guys, so I don't have to deal with like the ego.
You're lucky because it's rough.
Sucks.
But
I'm sure it sucks. I'm sure it's
you have
terrible.
great stories though, so that's nice.
I always thought you should make a blog and put people on blast. You don't want to do that, but whatever. That's just my opinion.
I had one for a short time and it just was a lot
I mean,
it's a lot to keep up with.
not to ruin people's lives or like put their face out there and like make them lose their job, but just like as a general like, by the way,
I
so
did. So I did, and this one guy, oh my God, I still feel really bad. So this one guy read it like years later and actually sent me and I didn't say anyone's name, like I would never do that. And I actually didn't think he could see it. I don't know. But he like told me because he recognized from like the story I told that it was definitely him. Um, and he was like, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry. Like I didn't realize I came off like that." And I was like, "I'm so sorry." Like I felt really bad about it. So it's like even though I didn't like legit put him on blast, I still felt really bad even though I was 100% legit uncomfortable
yeah, and also
with the
fuck that.
time.
He may a few years later been like, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't realize I was doing that. Benefit of the doubt, whatever. But at the same time, there's a big difference between like me saying something like, hey, you're pretty, or I like you, and you going like, I don't like that, and it's like, ooh, miscommunication, whatever,
Right.
to me just opening up with gross shit
Well, no, I mean, this person in particular, he wasn't like, he never said anything gross, but he was like, this is gonna sound conceited and shitty, I feel like, but he seemed like he was like too into me. Have you dated someone like that where they're just like so intense? And it freaked me out. And it wasn't that he wasn't like a nice guy, but he was just like too intense and I couldn't handle it. Like,
No, no, I've known people like that, but I never dated someone who was like
oh, that's like not my
obsessed.
type. Like maybe that's other people's types. And this, like I said, I've dated people that were terrible, grimy people, but like he wasn't a grimy person. He just, it was like too intense. It was like he came on way too strong and I just wasn't feeling it. And that's like okay, you're allowed to like not feel it, you
Yeah,
know.
yeah, exactly. I
Um
mean, I get that. I mean, the last relationship I ended, and it wasn't even, we were just dating, we were just talking, and we finally like met. This was back in like October, and it was going okay for about 2, 3 weeks maybe, and
mm,
then she didn't respond to me for like maybe 4 or 5 days, you know, and I was kind of like, hey, what's up? And she was like, oh, I'm sorry, whatever. She was going through some shit, and that's fine. But
yeah,
it's 2020, and it's very easy to like send a text. It takes 5 seconds to send a response.
right.
So if you're not going to respond to me for 4 days, I believe you when you say like you're going, you're having an whatever it is. Doesn't matter what it is, but I don't really want to, be involved with that. Like,
Yeah.
because
Well,
there's a
that's for
possibility
me.
you could be doing anything at this point. I don't really know you that well,
Right.
so to me, it's not a big red flag, or like it's not like something creepy or anything like that. But I just was
No.
like, yeah, I'm done, and
Yeah, but I don't blame you for that because for me, my personal thing is like if there's a guy that I'm talking to and I can go 4 days without texting him or like wanting to text him, because if I want to, I'm going to do it. Do you know what I mean? If I can do that, that means I don't like him that much. So it's not worth pursuing.
but
Um,
but wait, are you doing that now? You're saying you're doing that now?
no, I'm just, well, I mean,
Oh,
I'm saying I've done that before though, because but that's what it boils down to.
yeah,
Like like the book, He's Just Not That Into You, which is a great book, by the way. Um, but that's what I mean. Is like because it's like you said, you make the time to send a message. It's quick. When I actually was like really cared about someone, no matter what I was going through, I would text them every day. Like because they need to be part. Like the whole point is like you want them to be part of like your life, right?
yeah,
So
yeah. No, I'm a communicator. I if I and I'm honest to the point where if I find myself not communicating with someone for, let's say, a couple days, I
mhm.
might just break it off and be like, yeah, I'm sorry. I'm just not that. I guess I never read the book or watched the movie, but like, yeah, I'm just not that.
You say that I'm just not that into you,
I'm
and then
just
you're
not.
gonna get slapped in the face. Just kidding.
I I one time broke up with someone. This is about 2 or 3 years ago. A couple days after her birthday.
No.
Yeah,
Oh.
yeah. And I mean, it was leading up to it. It was gonna happen, and just it like hit it was like it came to a head, and I just was like, I am done. I'm dead. I'm
That
dead inside.
sucks. For their birthday? Oh.
A few days after. It wasn't on her birthday. I'm not a monster, but I actually felt bad about it. And about a year later, 10 months later, something like that, I messaged her like, "Hey, can we talk?" And she was like, "Sure." And now I know, or I assume, she thought I was gonna like ask her for like a booty call or something. But I legitimately got her on the phone and apologized. I just was like, "Look, it wasn't you at all. I was anxious and we were not completely compatible." Whatever I said to her, I don't remember exactly. And she was like, "Okay." And she blocked me on everything. I can't even see what she's up to in life. But I just like felt better that I apologized. I was like, hey, I still to this day though feel like even on the phone with her, she was like waiting for me to be like, oh, by the way, can we like hook up or what? And I didn't want to do anything. I was like, just wanted to say I'm sorry, and you know,
You
um,
said that she blocked you though. Did she block you after that?
no, she blocked me like almost like right after we broke up.
So how did you contact her?
I had her phone number. I still have her phone number. I text
Oh, okay. So she
her.
didn't block you on the phone.
No, no, no. She blocked me on like social media, but yeah, like I have no. Obviously, I'm single, so like every relationship I've been in has ended. But I'm at least friendly with 95% of the people, because it never like got ugly in my opinion. It just like either they were bored with me and ended it with me or ghosted me or whatever, or vice versa. I mean, I don't like to ghost people, but I will just be like, hey, I just can't, because for like what you said, like I'm in a position now where um because of my experience with mental health, I
Hmm.
know myself so well that if I'm not into it, I won't just like go along just to,
Right.
just to go along. And uh, I don't want to hurt anyone's feelings or go through a break. It sucks regardless, but I'd rather just pull the band-aid off earlier than, sooner rather than later. So
Right.
if I'm not into it, I'm just like, hey, I'm not into it, and sorry, and that's it.
Yeah, I get it. It's just like, ugh, I don't know. It's funny because as you're saying that, like someone sent me a message on Tinder, like while you were saying that. Like, I got a notification. I was like, oh God.
Why are you even using Tinder, Megan?
But
Tinder.
I'm not like it's only on my phone. Like I'm not like in it. But when I get a new message, I get notified. But that's weird. Like I don't know who'd be messaging me. Um,
Fuckboy 123, from Wantagh, whoever, whatever the fuck.
ugh. We'll
Or
definitely know if it's from Wanta. I'll get out of here. But
yeah, no,
um,
I don't really. The girl I was just talking to recently, she messaged me when I was still on my trip, like still out there. I
oh
was
really?
I was in like Utah or some shit, and we were like talking like once a week or every couple of days, like messaging. Then when I got back here, I was like, fuck it, let's hang out, let's get coffee, and
Why?
I was nervous though because of COVID, like
Yeah, but why did you go?
because I was like okay with just like hanging out, like hey, no physical contact, like, let's just get coffee and whatever.
But didn't you already end it at that point?
No, I'm saying before we were,
Oh, okay.
talking,
I got you.
and we were dating, and then like she was like I was like blunt, I was like, look, I just don't feel comfortable like touching anyone, kissing, whatever. And she was like, hey, by the way, blah blah blah, and I felt safe. So that wasn't the issue. That wasn't the issue in the end. The end, it was just like I said,
Right.
I texted her like on a Thursday, and she got back to me like on a Monday, and I was like, what's up? You okay? She's like, yeah, I'm fine. Just going through a lot of stuff. It was around the elections. It was like the first week of November, and I was like, okay, that's fine, but I don't like that because, you could have just been like, hey, all you had to text me was, hey, I think I need a couple of days to like be alone. I'd be like, cool, no problem. But
Right.
to get nothing is like I said, to me, it's like it takes 5 seconds to send a text message. So like, what's the big deal?
Yeah, it doesn't take any time. It's not a big deal. I don't know. That sounds stupid.
Yeah. So
I'm
anyway.
very quick now. I don't know because like my mom even said the other day we were talking about like Christmas and how my mom always gets something for like if my sister's married now, but like when she was dating someone or when I was dating someone, if they were around for Christmas, she always gets them stuff, which is really nice, right?
Yeah.
And she always gets like a lot, like a not just like one thing. She gives like a few things, but um, we were just talking about that and something about how it's not how they don't expect it, right? Because they're like just new on the scene or whatever. um, I was like, well, they're probably not thinking they're gonna get anything. Like you don't have to work because she really puts thought into like what she gets and stuff.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, they probably don't expect it and whatever. And I was like, well, with so and so, like they said that that was even like more than their own family gave them. And my mom was like, well, you're always bringing home urchins. I was like, yes, that's true. Like it was one example, but like reflecting on the history, I was like, yeah, no, that's right.
Now, describe to me what urchin means. Like, what exactly
Like a raggedy, like it's always like a person who's like down on their luck and they like never have a car and they have like a shitty job and like I'm always like, well, maybe I can help them reach their potential. Like, I always do that. And I'm like, well, maybe they're just like a diamond in the rough. Like
you
it's
like
just
you like a fixer upper. That's what it is.
Yeah, no, it's bad. Ow. Um,
That's a whole nother video. That's another
yeah,
3 hours of
it definitely is, but it's just been my way, unfortunately. Um, yeah, I don't know. It's never ended well thus far, but
Well, on that note, I'm going to stop the recording. I
okay.
think this was a great. We had an awesome conversation. It was 3 hours long, so I think
Was it really?
I think I might cut this in half. So we're gonna end it here. I'm just gonna hit stop recording. But yeah,